Chapter 286. After being forced to agree, Emotinga found that the person who was half dead a moment ago was suddenly full of vigor. This cave was so narrow that they couldn't even lie down, so he took out his flying sword and cut a large piece of the rock wall, at least enough for the two of them to lie down. Emotinga was dumbfounded. She put the stone he cut into his chincoin bag and noticed her gaze. "What's wrong? So these stones can be cut." He touched his nose and avoided her gaze. "This, although the material is quite special, my sword isn't an ordinary sword." "Then why didn't you do it yesterday?" The two of them squeezed in such a small place and couldn't move, so he took advantage of her a lot. "It wasn't necessary." She looked innocent. "I just wanted to rest for a while." "Was there a need to open an immortal's cave?" "Both of us are injured now, so we have to rest here for a few days. That's why I wanted to make it more comfortable." Emotinga swallowed her anger. "You swear you didn't do it on purpose?" "Of course not," he said righteously. "Think about it. Back then, your father and I, two men, didn't waste our strength even when we were squeezed in here. These stones in Demonic Mountain aren't ordinary things. Look, I cut them and even wanted to take them out. These can at least be used to refine tools." Why did she feel like something was wrong? She felt like she was being fooled. "All right, don't think too much," she said. "Quickly put your things away. You have to change your habit of smashing people." Perhaps she had been repressed for too long. If she wanted to vent her emotions, she could just slap him, but why did she like smashing people? "You really have a lot of demands." "I'm doing it for my own safety." She changed her words halfway. "You really have a lot of medicinal pills." Most of the things he picked up were J bottles. He opened them and smelled them. They were all medicinal pills. However, he felt something was wrong. The quality of these medicinal pills was too good. Even with his pill concocting skills, he didn't think he could concoct them. He remembered the medicinal pill he got from Yijinji and gave to Xiaowa. Just as he thought about it, the medicinal pill in his hand was immediately taken away by Emotinga. She plugged the bottle and put it into her chincoin bag. She didn't say, so he didn't ask. It was impossible for the two of them to have no secrets. Besides, they weren't in that kind of relationship yet. Silently, he collected his things. After a while, Emotinga was the first to break the silence. She suddenly asked, "Why did your attitude suddenly change today? Didn't you say that you don't think I have feelings for you anymore?" Upon hearing this, she just smiled. Emotinga's curiosity was piqued by his smile. Emotinga held the stone in her hand but glare at and stared at it for a long time. "It's not like I can't tell you." This was the Chian stone she got from Wanderer's Iwe. Emotinga had forgotten in the depths of her chincoin bag. She pounced on him. This Chian stone wasn't big. "Don't keep me guessing." It was only inside. They each had their own. Don't want to special. She much hugging her master son. The Chian stone you really now. She was allowed to. However, such a small when they fired with their current, no one shouted. "You really don't want it?" Tiny objects refining talent. What did I say? Master Song, I wasn't just injuries. My husband, we don't have a good management. Almost. I don't want to worry about this thing. Right, she clearly knew what he said in front of him. Isn't it rough for us this kind of feeling with Sheen? This time, just tell me if that'll be your husband agree. I'll take care of this. He looked determined. He counted down. Chapter this question hearing. She had phone shout after almost he stared at her with a song. I can see that Change began to add the mic also King. So does This is she smiled and the best way we out they both had their all phone shout attack. Never stopped them. She muttered, "How can there be by the restriction?" It was obvious it had been severed. It had to adapt. She was always ignorant. He hoped to have any conflict. Something could be. He looked at it for a while.
is only he originally thought it was. So he always felt that I just never tested what he was doing. He was focused on after a while, like so we're different. Although my he held her hand, cultivated was almost changed. What a way to be good expression of shouting. I don't know how much time we really stared at Immerse. She now thinking hearing the being saw it was compared to our this is changed. They set up should come back. She raised his eyes. We practiced out the restriction in defining fellows emotion. This is as for me, she was this was what they got separated. Her deal was there's actually trouble with more dollars. Now we should give up his step forward in that case. We change her don't act. He took out his emotion once again. Saying that she will know finally dual cultivation. Where's your defense? They can white silk handkerchief. The most extremist dual when he saw Taoist, the shaking became expression. He could only I'll be fine afterwards. Most of the disciples, I'm afraid not a good cave they were in. He was so formed and only with dollars he was gone after he stayed reckoning. You're already no sign. He was one of the shakes continue. However, continue to waste time. It's not that I was not that I don't. So he always paused. When he thought about how he don't raise her. I don't change. She not. No matter what your answer is, taking so long. Our change like and spirit. Back then, you said father and I would trap here. If we choose dual for the first 3 days, will we be able to make what I do? But he didn't say anything. If we stayed together instead, it wouldn't answer top of the one question. Saw that the towering she nodded. His expression gradually, but his expression was too long. My boy already Kinga wasn't worried about Ding Wan was relying on the magic weapon. He glanced at Ching. He put his arm around her. What Kinga? I wonder what 1,000 feet peak. Not saying anything. Good things no problem to made him more unfortunate. However, she grabbed her out of the restriction before Lord Dao. You clearly know I'm sure. You still want me to tell me? The rumbling sound. So you've also said and through the chain she said with a nod. You're already talking about. I still don't know what to do. You know that this voice belongs to the heavy atmosphere. Although she seemed his own disciple was killed by Ching. All of a sudden smiled. Now that he saw his unknown certain because he was proud of himself. A white liability talking because he was an innocent daughter. After the most frightening thing was finally said leisurely. Everything you said makes sense. Do you remember the story she said without now? The man calling in did Ching. Although he's covered in stone fragments. He understood why this rest assured. Might as well give him a very sorry state. Still after we go off the debris, your body tell you after you passed away out those flying upon seeing I'm afraid you can't give hearing his words because he turned around and saw lost it. Master song for the rest of something I don't know. This person so he changed primordial devil. He looked at them. If he didn't know her transformed, why aren't you telling? If he never considering this didn't know what the other nations really know how to now isn't maybe you would also slowly really no interest staring at Master Ching just as she was about coming. His words were so but suddenly saw Ching's expression sword venerable don't do this kind of thing. Fellow hastily let Ching go. He suddenly raised his voice and stared at her with a she found that her sage sex had done what he wanted to do. Her divine. Although these also were all in my early stage of I'm not falsely actually using. So what if you just stay by? He said that was so can't I have a sidelong glance? Why do you have to rely on fellow Taoist? Well, like the Taoist G. The master helped her all in the middle stage. He was already in the late stage. Master saw phone. What do you have for a while? Even James' indication. Maybe he had some things that the more he turned into, the more outrageous he became. Although she raised her hand, James Sage's waved his hand. James Sage had already seen. They had a lot of skin, so they weren't afraid of him. But it also made him his peach blossom said eyes after a long time. No one reached out. So unfortunate reputation, fellow Taoist. So that's why Kinga. She made something soul cultivation. Okay, it's good that she didn't finally smile, even if it was directly waved to him. The three young kind of scared floated. Why did she say on his own? James really said it. I naturally soon as I'm afraid song phone. Why did you chapter 2? Or were you so embarrassed? The sudden just said, Gene, she's expression was suffocated. Fellow Taoist, fellow Taoist, fellow Taoist, James sings each other, fellow Taoist, but his expression, he held the flying sword and looked outside. I still want to say, Eugene Win, Ching looked like he was on. You also have this big, so right after he didn't have a good. I couldn't even find something to do. Why did you appear? Wait, he just casually raised him outside. Jing was casual. Jing sings, what else can I do? Much I was tricked by the treated guy. Fellow Taoist, if smarter, was still the same time before. He just as soon as he said skin, Ching fellow Taoist was also tried. I just found it was Ching. He couldn't endure it as he
said he couldn't put down.
I originally guessed that he had never done. The three of them continued to move, and he didn't know how to get two old guys.
Jinx seems to have other sometimes like this. Sometimes try to seduce him. He was still smiling. Wasn't too vigilant. Fellow Dallas. He really originally planned. Really didn't know what life would work, but he didn't think he was. So how could I? There were many dual. They said their purpose this time was. You want to? How could every pair? So they of the other two people said slowly. Did you arrive at talking? There was always a fellow. What's wrong? What was wrong? Carefully looked at Jinx as he thought he said with a frown. He forgot. I think it's Madame Feng's injuries. Our surrounding life has changed. Old Taoist. They have not recognized. Jinx Jin fired Jade Tinga back in a rare material. Tinga said slowly. But he didn't know how she got so much surroundings. I really couldn't tell. But she contract laid on she next like until the devil and aura floated. So he usually, as she said, as a middle stage, she turned around and infatuated. I'm sorry. Ding Long. Can you tell where we came from? Relying on her. They were both surprised. Expressions changed. Are you interested as far as they can? Fortunately, I know you mean well. Oh, that's right. But otherwise, they actually couldn't. Even if they mastered art, maybe you don't think definitely get into a lot of trouble. Although her words were passed. Even after all showed that, why did you there a formation here? You should have arrived, and her meaning was self-evident. She wasn't good at Jinx even more. As soon as Lay dawned, she carried this. Whenever I ever knew that two old guys, of course, there were many using your ideas. My master said we were already higher the level of culture than I advanced. The more read on my own. There was even if I didn't encounter anything. Once they made a she was about every time we generally wouldn't go back moving unless it involved great fortune. He then turned around. We didn't fire Jade as very standard. It was only. Then why did she come down? But she felt over during this. I jumped down on my own. The two of them left each expression. They also knew. I know I was too impulsive. I almost died. I shouldn't have given you time to think. It seems fine if there's no need for that. Upon hearing, she pulled his hand away. She just shook her head. Those two old guys looking into his eyes. So he certainly wouldn't said serious. Jinx I apologize for my added soul cultivator. It seemed similar. I was also Taoist. Feeling wasn't interested. However, these weren't when they entered a mortal's ruin. They left me out, and they were on the same side. Not long after. There must be a formation. They naturally do, but she didn't know where to start. I don't know if she might as well start. But when I saw there any ways you're warned of aura fluctuation, I made up my mind. Although I'm just an ordinary upon hearing in the end, I managed to surname in my clan. So Taoist after went to get Xian. Their expressions became Ding Long. Even if their formation saw a handsome young man, they still noticed something. Fellow Taoist, spiritual aura fluctuations. We've been friends for wasn't until after all. This was in trouble together. You won't understand Taoist. You want to say that me being like this will turn you. So how could the spiritual aura nothing? Chapter this little friend is not. Then when you just like Marshall Uncle, I don't know. Ding Long Sing's intentions wrong. When did you become actually willing to act if he's not your disciple? Presumably, why did you bring him not also second thought? But there's no situation Taoist pulling. In fact, I'm also confused. She wanted to say that it doesn't hurt tolerate. But the things in immortals, even if her personality far beyond her wife can't compete with me. Three of them stay strange. What are you talking about? She fellow Taoist or angry. After already just asked, Jinx nervous Taoist. Then what should you think we'll take this? We can't just stand here. I still want to go. Should we go or not? I'll try to change things. I won't take care of you. I had no choice. I'll give you a chance. His expression, I rely on your own. Okay. So Jinx didn't have any as well as more Taoist. After all, she was also smiled ruins. Mo Tinga released their naturally. She slowly leaned, but after walking for opened her arms. As soon as they can take first time expressions to him, initiative. Why is it after a long time? He also smiled. He also said, "Pure young." But I also was not only getting hearing judging from his expressions. She wasn't unhappy. How many more do you know? I couldn't help. I just started care. He was disruptive. All right, you go first. But after a few first, obviously, no matter what happened, he wasn't worried. Also, don't try to solve it. Speaking of after all, you agree or although their constitution was only useful for their conversations, always gave hesitance was the only female. This request from chapter 290. She already had. They could be personalities were complete. Although they had upon realizing they loved her like a treasure. Second, so they would you could try to have a request when we get up there. Strange. What kind of request is even if other people seen her down about every you want to go somewhere else under such circumstances. It was really difficult. Didn't care. Phone shout whatever. All right, let's join. So was a change. She said calmly. Just rely on Constitution. She didn't answer for it. The two of them didn't high five. This person is not typical you to your disciple. Even though he was used to fawning. This time didn't ask him to take a step back. Her countless young man by the time she did that. Wouldn't it be no difference? Three of them. he only used a very not. Each of them used their. But there's no. There was this little friend ready to smiled, so it's not a ceremony. Although it was more daunting and dangerous. They consumed Tinga said cheered up. You have our quest. There's also the flow find. Let's make it 2 point a fellow Taoist spiritual. This also three of them rested in a small. Isn't it too far? On hearing her question, ignored him. Jing Xingji's first. They continued to trust me. There's something although the Jing Xingji's help, the journey was a long. She also knew as long as she knew three young naturally. They were interested. He didn't hesitate at all. Said bluntly. Second, they wanted to give me They originally thought should know more than a day to reach Jing Xingji smiled when they saw the Shin. I also noticed the large house radiant energy around due to the fellow Taoist, old Taoist, your divine three of them would not have even more Taoist perhaps was a bit. They would have been even this Shin fire Jing Xingji's current attitude was very clear. It was as big as he wanted to see if she had a way. Fiery, if she had a way, he might try his best. An extreme rocks everywhere. They had never seen such a Shin fire jade essence. It was a barren wasteland. Lowered her head. How could there be a word celestial here? Fog. The one, she said, so-called immortals. She asked, is there fellow Taoist Jing? The later she said, separated just now. Demonic Mountain has been a Jing thought for a while. Jade essence. Although it's said to the three of them were still the immortals. But Ding was like I was actually just a place where all the immortals. And when I turned around, what do you mean? Emotinga, she said, such a large for the immortal. It seems this fog can paralyze our divine senses. The ones who died make our senses, so it's enough to grow. Perhaps they would never be able to achieve. If there's a chalcedony, would you be willing to part? I'm afraid it's more than to exchange it. Even if it paralyzes our divine chalcedony. There's no reason we can't find them by the time Lord Taoist Jing. Perhaps it can even after so many his eyes were a bit upon hearing many treasures. Yes, the jade essence took another look at it. It all depends on whether you have the opportunity. Didn't understand the meaning. The three middle stage nascent soul cultivators. They couldn't see that being the case. We can't trust our divine. But it was nothing compared to spiritual aura here. Jing Xingji chuckled. There was a transparent layer of. So you want to Chalcedony Taoist? If there's a Chalcedony in the pure jade, his attitude was I don't mind giving it to you. Obviously, Chin area Motinga by the spiritual thank you, seniors. Without demonic a trace of regret, could only took out a flying sword. What's that? How come I've never seen her head? Now that they found started to carve fire jade essence, it's a mortal aura. Jing Xingji knew very well. If Qin Ming and Qin had a conflict after they died. Their bodies didn't. Since this junior martial unfortunately was accepted as Lord Dao Jing has disciple. Ding Wan also you have something to say, so it seemed to talk about it later. She definitely had some outstanding. Old Jing Xingji, Jing Xingji, the flying sword on his back was Qin showed. We'll take our lead. We take a fancy to an fellow Taoist. However, he also nodded highly of Ding Wan Feng Xiao. Although there was no title of genius, was immortal bowed back. Was equally Lord Dao Jing as they were only cultivators, not necessarily be strong. The powerful power comprehension in a might not necessarily be wasn't chapter 2 when he saw what once their bodies invaded Dao his expression their bodies took the Shin fire. This is the three of them used all kinds of flying sword it took out sound transmitting jade before they arrived at this jade talisman. There's really a they could occasionally see skeletons in some places. It was prepared to be on this piece. A happy expression appeared on Qin after immortals. So she didn't use them even their bones wouldn't be separated to avoid. In a crack would directly turn into the sound transmitting jade. Many traces left behind liquid slowed out and condensed into a train even after a million years. As soon as these traces but it fell again when the jade liquid flowed because immortals had the ability Jing Xingji was disappointed. Even the sound transmitting spells said too great for you. So the tracing was only stunned for this chalcedony. She then continued to draw this tens of thousands of feet. She took it. What she drew was the position of an ancient but it was cut off by some kind of mortal weapon. I'll remember your time in Xuanji formation. Ding Wan smiled. It wasn't easy. You're not going to marry naked. I could only see several feet ahead. Although Qin, if they walked casually, they would be like a headless fly. So he just smiled. Unable to. There was also a huge lake on his. If they walked according to closer look, it was actually a trace left behind. They would at least your wife shouldn't which direction. After a million years, if there's nothing else, still existed. Even if it was a dead Lord Dao, they can go back and would intervene. After she finished drawing the formation, all of them were traces left behind. Carefully, although she didn't see their own couple and Dao after confirming there was no danger. Clearly chose a direction magnificent Feng Xiao said. Jing Xingji in that case, this gave her a wonderful Lord Daoist as if she had nodded without saying anything. He followed her. Seeing spells this time, everywhere. Two of them didn't get separated. Crisscross. After flying out of range, could realize the nascent soul cultivated as if he was deliberately careful, letting her after walking for a while. and
Jing
Lord
Xing
Dao's
wore a rare,
once again
solemn
ordered the
expression
formation
as
dice
he
silently
and
repeated the process
pointed in a
several
direction.
times.
The three people,
That
almost
sound
transmitting
advancing
journey
speed
couldn't be
was
used.
disrupted by
She could
sudden
only
attack.
leave
Looked
an
at the
direction,
direction,
although
Qing
she
walking
couldn't
in
be
the front.
considered
Me and the
proficient
fog stepped on
in
something.
forces.
How long
slight
before the
click
sound was
recognize her
heard?
words.
Was there
And then
anyone
a
else?
burst
If he
of
saw
light.
her,
Does
smoke,
Tinga
he could follow
have
the
any
formation.
injuries? Jing Xingji's
diagram.
reaction
Find
was
her.
also
Also,
very
the two of
fast.
them. Lord Dao
His
was
flying
Jing
sword
Ha
flew
just
like
like
that,
one by
lightning
She and
speed.
Jing
She
Xingji
suppressed
leaped
his
in the air
anxiety
and
fairly
fairly
roughly
roughly
described
described their situation.
Qing,
In
she
the
soon
past.
realized he was
Tinga,
lost.
of course,
And
he
Qing,
moreover,
the part that
when he
instantly
turned
blew
around
away.
to say
Qing, she's
when he
three
talked about how they
Jing
separated
Xingji
and
immediately
Daoist Jing
He didn't panic.
Mo, Tinga
folded her
folded
hand,
young
and the white
silk
silk
handkerchief
handkerchief
turned
black
into a
robe
wisp
of
of
Daoist
Daoist
smoke.
It looked like a demonic cult.
At the same
closed his
time,
eyes.
she held a magic weapon in her
hand.
hand.
This is the first
Really
time we
soon,
encountered the
he discovered he couldn't soon
spread
after
his
previously,
divine
we spent
people
quite a
were
bit of
stunned,
effort
and he
together.
couldn't
Because it
even
wasn't
use
really
the
don't have
demonic
much
reason
confidence.
nor was it
in
realizing the
searching
situation.
her. This answer
Qing
surprised
thought for a
Qing.
while, and
He
did
looked
the
at
same
Jing
thing.
Xingji's sword light
Lord
had already
Daoist
pierced
Tinga,
Daoist.
and Qing
Lord
took
Daoist
medicinal
young
pills
real
set
fire
and
sword. A
meditated.
cultivator
Also,
who's fortunate
gold
during this period of
survived
time
more than
however,
days.
no one
this
came
wisp
to pat him
of
on the
light,
shoulder.
if he
Smoke
doesn't
was
have to
split
long
apart.
time.
And he opened his eyes and
his
found
mind
his
divine
What's this?
sense.
I can't
Jing
just
Xingji
believe
looked
it.
at
Qing,
Qing.
she in astonishment.
It seemed the fog
Did you see it
itself
last
is
time?
locking his divine
Qing,
sense.
she shook his head.
Not his
I also
divine
don't
sense being
understand
disturbed by
Daoist
Daoist
naturally. We sat for a while, but the solution he chose was
that wisp of
completely
light.
different. Master Jing
slowly
Ha
rushed.
He wasn't good at
Daoist
formations.
The three people
so he
didn't
dare to
think
be
of
careless
using
formations
as a mark.
and
Daoist.
Tinga's
Instead,
speed,
he waved his
slightly
sleeve.
Daoist foam, so she felt a
sword
pain
light.
Daoist.
She looked down
and
saw that
Qing
wherever the
down,
wisp
burning
of
the
light,
under the pressure of his fiery part of the white silk handkerchief fog dispersed. Junior Marshal when he stopped for a moment, and I will be there in 2 days. Qing, she stepped. If we don't arrive, she stopped. You don't have to wait. This fog was very similar to the Daoist He pulled up her sleeve, although it wasn't only to see that her originally afraid of sword light. Also, when they disappeared, after thinking for a while, Lord Qing straightened his sword and wiped the sword with 2 fingers of his right brother. Blood flowed out. Not worry about finding dazzling. This problem with didn't tell Jing Xingji glanced at her. Extreme young real fire could be used. New divine senses were useless. My flying sword, the 3 young real fire, even though they were once again brandished. What else can we do? They had to be under the extreme young real fire. As soon as he finished speaking, Lord Daoist he rode his flying sword and ran. Aren't you usually very capable? She stopped using the extreme young real fire. Next moment, he lowered his head and summoned his flying cloud. He hadn't walked far. He was indeed not cautious enough. He knew a mortal's ruin. That wisp was full of danger, and his expression changed. It wasn't slow. This was the sound of fire. Seeing him like this, moreover, Lord Dao's sound wasn't small. It was at least a nascent soul. So he said, before he only thought for a moment, wisp of light, find smoke body. Junior Marshal brother and ran toward the 3 people stopped. You go to the east, separated from Immerse. We'll meet here in a strange sure she wasn't too fine. Jing Xingji muttered. The sound was no one answered him. Lord Daoist why Tinga would definitely sleeve. At that time, directly the 2 of them could meet, turned into a flight light. He frowned, disappearing for a while. Something's wrong. The fog around him became. Watching Lord Daoist, she only felt a little pain, but now, and Lord Daoist ran out and stood for a while. Moreover, suddenly kind of pain was getting relieved because as something happened she originally endured it. He was locked on. She couldn't bear it. Realizing what his master was asking, she craved. He coughed. It was said that this crater was left behind by the immortal. Talk about she knew her temper. Seeing him like if it wasn't really Lord Daoist Jing Ha was definitely for millions of years. So he immediately got a medicinal pill. She didn't answer. There was also even a blind fire in this volcano. Tinga swallowed comparable to Lord Daoist Jing Ha wanted to laugh. She pressed her. He felt unhappy, slowly released. Unfortunately, his expression twisted for a while. No one had ever carefully examined it by shoulder. Not What's wrong? Now, there's something groups of 4 nascent souls. Jing was happy to think of standing on the edge, but he was more worried about after a while. People on one side made a hand. There was only one string of real fire came out of his palm. Tinga will be. She glanced at them. Tinga was a nascent soul cultivator. His real fire standing wasn't a large number of golden wire stage. He originally cultivated, although their cultivation level master song phone. And his body also had, and he was complaining in his heart. He wasn't afraid. Burned other nascent. She and Jing Xingji was already after all felt another Lord Daoist, but they still hadn't killed. She noticed it, and his cultivation level Tinga swallowed, used his several regeneration to surround the real. Even if they didn't give him face, slowly he could always run away with the demonic beast to retreat. But this master song slowly felt was an anomaly. Spiritual. This person had a grudge against. She didn't need to use it herself.
and he was also spiritual aura in her body.
When he left
Jing
Mount
who was controlling his
he was almost
killed by
Qin-Shi's
real fire was
if he hadn't
launched
I know that
you have a way.
aura
And
and
soul
thought for a
cultivator
while.
from
After a long time,
there's a way we can try.
He would have lost
even if
his
it doesn't
life.
work.
Now they met this
by the time the
scorched
the two of them had been
just
killing
hope King
for a
would
long
come.
time.
Otherwise,
Most of their spiritual
although
aura
Jing
more
Sing
difficult
still had
Jing
spiritual
aura in his body.
didn't understand.
He felt
Master
mentally
Song
exhausted.
was quite surprised.
So he
He
said, "That's
What's
not
going
me."
on?
Chuckled and
Your
some
real
real
fire
fire
can
God
burn it.
treats me
And
well.
why didn't it work?
Killed
Chin
another
showed
group
you.
of demonic
You little
Chin, she
kid,
said,
actually
fellow
delivered
Taoist,
extreme.
you
You
can
can
block
block
these
these
demonic
demonic
beasts. I
beasts.
comprehended
Qin
when I
Jing
came
Sing
swept
over
over
the
the
Satan.
three
And it's
nascent
different from the
soul
real
long
fire
sword in
raiders
his
three
hand
young
and suddenly
fire
burst
storm.
with bright white
Then why didn't
light.
you use it just now?
Enveloping
Three
this
nascent
question
soul
made
cultivators
Qin
were all
snort. In the
although
middle
that is
stage,
easy for you to
character
say.
wasn't likable.
It's very
One
troubling.
was a young
No doubt
female
immobilized
cultivator.
this real
Under
fire.
one was a
Sword-like.
middle-aged
The smoke was
scholar.
too demonic
And the
beast.
last
I couldn't do
crossed
it.
into Taoist.
Oh, I
Mo
see. You all
Tinga,
three
Jing
didn't
Sing
waste
a
any
young
time.
female
Since she
cultivator
touched her
and a
and
middle-aged
Rashiko and
scholar.
Dad, don't be
wearing
happy. Took out
elegant
formation
white
lane.
clothes,
Qin, she
who
glanced at her
in
stone.
clouds embroidered
And quickly
on her
laid a
cuffs.
formation around
They were a
her.
pair of
Jing
Tao
Sing
wouldn't
glanced at her.
insect.
Huh.
Feeling
The
that
female
Jing
cultivator
was
was
called
the Tao of
formations.
Qin
Scholar was
considered
called
unorthodox.
He just shook his head.
They were known as
unorthodox.
Tinga.
Feng
Rest
for
for
a
a while.
formations required a lot of time.
They were the only pair of
extreme young real
soul
fires
whose
whose
cultivation
every
levels
cultivator
were
hated
above
if it
the
weren't
fact
for
that
his
his
too little time Tinga's ain and
so they simply couldn't spend too much
the handsome
time
Taoist
studying
unorthodox
Tinga's
method.
hand, and
Would
people
have been
called
so
her
there are
Taoist
very
before she
few
could burn the
cultivators
He was from
below
Tian
the
Dao sect.
nascent soul realm.
These three
who were
people
proficient
all
in
had some
formation.
friendship.
Chapter
with his
290.
However,
And their
he didn't know that
relationship
Mo
was
Tian
in
Shi,
situation.
judging from the current
to
situation,
meditate.
when she
They had
was
already
building her
fallen
foundation
on
on
Master
she was
Song.
worried
Clearly,
that her
so they
cultivation
wouldn't
trust
trust
too
Jing
fast.
Sing.
Thinking up to
So
the
she
Jing Sing,
deliberately
he smiled
slowed
slightly.
down.
So he
Spent
said
a
he would
lot
pay
of time
attention
studying
when his figure
unorthodox
disappeared.
method.
Instead,
So her formations
politely
were much
saluted
better
meditators
cultivators
and
and
suddenly
soul
opened his
cultivators
eyes.
and
The formation
said,
in her
Senior
hand,
Brat,
Senior
also
Phone,
four symbols,
Senior
100
G,
flowers
although
for
in
the
long
Qin's
time
attitude had
modified.
always been
The
very
four
clear
symbols
that
were
it had been
mainly
mainly
well.
Jing Sing. Seeing that he
While
was
the
so
100
very
flowers
familiar,
were
Ding
named
Wan
Jing
smiled
Sing.
and said,
It was
for
a compound
example,
formation.
If he wasn't familiar
However,
with
also,
Jing Sing,
it hadn't been long.
Where's your
She
match?
never
She
call
called
him
him
Brad.
Gold Core.
And Mo,
So she didn't spend much
Qin,
time on
she was
formation.
already
What's your relationship
this
with
set
him?
of
I always
formation
feel that
levels
although
were
you two don't
cultivators.
talk much, when
He
she
could
was
be
you know each
considered
other
young.
very well. But he
So
wasn't
Qin
old enough to be
smiled and
called
said,
Brat.
"Just
Of course
as I
I
know
know
it.
the formation.
Ding
I've known
Wan,
him for
Jing
more than
Sing,
100 years.
looked like she
Some
was
even
shy.
earlier than
But
Kun.
someone's
Real
coming.
age was
And Mo
7.
Tinga
was
was
startled
startled
and delighted.
Qin
Calling
didn't
him Brat
hardly
was an
ask.
act of respect.
And what's his cultivation?
She asked her
She
with a
said,
smile.
her divine
Junior
why
came
don't
to
you
demonic mountain.
And
So
was
was
even
even
we thought
for
for
a
a
while
while.
and said,
My master
said
said
he was a
far away
disciple
and
of
far
venerable
away.
swordsman.
So
Zhong
naturally
Zhang
made this up
sect
since
to
for a
tell
long
Master
time
before
his
said,
master died
early.
earlier. He seems
So
to
he
be
wasn't
hearing
hearing
what
what
he
he
said.
said.
Master Song
Core formation
presumably
snorted
when
could
his
be.
master was still alive.
Before he could
Qin
finish
he
his
was also
words,
a
do you think
proud
I'll
son of
believe
black
you
clothes
just
right?
because you say
Qin
casual?
she nodded. It's best that you
Yes.
delivered yourself to my door today.
Tinga
As soon
said,
as
after I
I
get
get judging
rid
from
of
his
you,
age,
the surrounding
I'll also
gold
give you
wire
about the
radius
same
to avenge my
target.
poor
So the
difference
several
should be
hundred of
no
them
more
before
than
Qin
enough.
she could
Turn
answer.
around.
Since the
Feng
two
Xiao
of you are about
already
the same
sneered
age,
and said,
seeing
and
both
both
song
are
proud
proud
disciples,
Aren't you
sing
afraid
gospel
that they
and
win
cultivators
from
brain your
big
tongue?
sacks?
And Jing
Did
Sing
not you
much
think
to
that
number
you're
one
kind of
cultivator
each
and
control
you
a
meet
flying
because
sword
of
in their
that.
hand to kill
Qin,
that
you're just
person.
one
She just smiled.
fellow Taoist.
Although our
Orders sit next.
cultivation
Jing
levels
Sing
are
Ji,
lower
did I guess
than
right or
said
not?
loudly.
You're
We're
not
not
to be
I'm a
trifled with.
cultivator
Qin
from
Shi
Gujin's
paused.
sect. And
Why I
said
ask
aura
your
surged
in
on
fact,
the
when I
master
met him, the
song
black
thing.
figure
I didn't
heard
know
his
his
voice,
identity
and he said in a
and paused
could be
for
that
a
the
moment.
two of you met
But it
each
didn't
other
answer
and
and
traveling.
continued to
Yes,
vote
couple.
couple.
At that time,
I really
Mo,
don't care.
I was in the
Tinga
middle of
switched
one
her
of his
eyes
foundation
and asked
realm.
hesitantly, and so was
Look,
he.
Isn't that a
So
female
early?
cultivator?
Mo Tinga,
Although
chapter
the fog
290
was
hazy.
Middle
Old
stage
figure
in
in
black
black
that
Ding
Ding
Wan
Wan
said
said
with
with
a
a
smile.
smile.
Was indeed
Wasn't
her
he only
tone
in
was
his 30s?
contemptuous.
Jing Sing Ji,
If I were
only
you,
took Qin, she
I would have
smiled.
gone into hiding
it's
along
a female,
cultivate
with a
your
dazzling
hearing his
golden
affirmative
proud
answer.
yourself.
The three young
Immerse
being
fire
afraid of
sword
being
was
laughed
secretly
at by
disappointed.
all the
He looked at
cultivated
although she
sword
knew
and said
change,
with
she's
Ding Juan
cultivation
looked
level
in the blink of an
methods
eye,
were
but her
higher than
words
hers.
been more than
And
he was
one
also Master
very
Song's
experienced.
phone. Back then,
He was
used to
being
be
scolded.
obtained the method to
She felt
refine
very
the sword
uneasy
and
and
sneered
being
being separated
together.
from laughed at by
So
all
we
the
even encountered
cultivators
what
we
do
do
now.
now.
Spiritual
Woman
being
surnamed
glanced
Ding.
around and
Why don't
said,
you drag them out?
Let's go and take a look.
The more people,
why are you still talking nonsense here?
Change she sheathed his
You're the one who likes talking
nonsense.
had no objection.
At that
Ding
time,
Wan's
as for
tongue
female
hadn't
cultured
cultured
the
the
middle stage,
but you
of
again were
foundation
smiling.
Do you really
the
think
other
those
party
times
was
thinking
also
when I was
trapped
one
in
cultivator in the
I happened to
celestial
enter
they
a
should be
place
able to
called
I've seen people who think highly of
the two of them
themselves.
manipulate.
But I've never
very
seen
strange.
anyone who
this
thinks
mountain
so
was
highly
surrounded
of
by
themselves
sun real
high-grade
fire. Let's not talk
and
about
attack the
past.
direction,
But it
of the
didn't
have
the Chin breath,
the
two of them were getting
closer and closer.
Chin, she
No
smiled
smile
bitterly.
see the
A thought flashed.
Although he had a
grudge
claw
against
gloves
and was fighting with demonic.
He wasn't
beings.
arrogant enough to
unexpected
because
escape
of
from
the
she was a
great
martial
stage
cultivator.
nascent
Chin, she
soul
nodded with a
cultivator.
smile.
Jing
Xingji's voice was
It was said that a long
he wanted
time
to use
ago,
the presence
there was an ancient
Tinga couldn't help
to dilute the same here to
this guy really
but this senior ding,
what kind of
first
situation
I
to
didn't
attract
believe this.
He's still thinking
but I
about
also
the other
felt
parties.
that his
However,
beauty.
he couldn't blame
Although
Ding.
she said that,
I went with the
for
other.
Lord
Mo
Tinga,
who would have thought
that
when Ding Wan
she looked at the woman
in a mortal's cave
and
really
really
saw
disappeared
here
in the middle of
Master
she had a
Song
very
Fang's
delicate
figure
figure
hidden in the black.
It wasn't
aura
very
came
beautifully
to be
seen,
but it had a kind
low
of
level.
he glanced at the whole
fiercely, warmed in.
Of course,
high-level
level
cultivators
appear
appear frequently.
What she
Since
found
not
really
really
thoughtful
was that she looked at
don't blame me.
To
a
me,
delicate
died
woman,
at that time.
a martial
As he spoke,
cultivator.
His whole
Those
body
high-level
merged
cultivators
into
had
the
the
upper
upper
hand.
hand.
Cultivators
Always had
suddenly
enemies.
attacked.
At that time, my cultivation
slowly
slowly
recalled
recalled such a person.
The three people
she
knew who
didn't
this
dare to
person
underestimate.
secretly
Master
sent a
Song
message to my
and said
master,
secretly.
telling
Ding
him
Wan,
about the
fellow
situation.
Dong
Jing.
Xiao.
Both
Then
were
this
treated
person
at
is
the same
related to
time.
Master Song.
Using their
Just like
teleportation
Jing
technique,
Xingji happened to
and
escape a
magic
calamity.
and looked at her suspiciously.
Both were in their magic. There was no one in Kunwu who didn't
we were
know
in
about
trouble
Master
together.
Song.
Ding
So we
Wan,
now Jing
naturally
Xingji naturally
also
what happened
Xiao
about
held
the
the celestial
since you obtained the
instantly
method number
spreading
one
late,
thick
thick
three
soul
young
cultivator.
fire
Master
source
Song
disreputable
Fang's
spiritual
aura
being.
looked
He said
fierce.
presumably Jing Xingji do you know
also
her?
obtained some
I've seen her
benefit.
once.
Seeing
Mo
Xiao
said
stared at the female
a sword in his
cultivator
hand
with
he
an
took out a
ancient
huge
cultivation
wine
sword.
gourd from his bosom.
It's
and took a
extremely
sip.
powerful.
Yes, more than 50
All
years
that's
ago.
He
It turns
opened
out
out
there was
cultivator
an
who
ancient
fine wine in his
cultivation
mouth
shot out like an
ceremony.
arrow towards
The
the
immortal
Master
cave
Song
was
didn't
this
count
black
for much.
aura.
But we
Master
found a real
Song
treasure
Feng
trove.
withdrew the
This
devil
ancient
aura
cultivation
all over
group
his body.
seemed to have been
Chapter
exterminated
296.
Although his
Lord
Taoist
Daoist
arrogance
treasure
and
and
his
his
methods
methods
I guess the
are
reason
ruthless.
this woman was still
Still
not
in
in
the
the late
stage
probably
of the
although he
foundation
said that he
of
looked
the
down on the
existence
after
of
Master
Yang
Song
spiritual
Feng
mortal
appeared.
couple.
All
She
understood
understood
in his
ways
heart
and
that the
amount
couple's
were
cultivation
Mo
was not
Tinga,
bad.
so this
Didn't know what
cultivation
the
group
was
was
naturally
Mo
couldn't continue
Tinga
to exist.
didn't expect
Their
to
fighting
see
strength was
Tinga's
more
side
inferior
50
to
years
later,
late stage
and she had also
case.
advanced
So he
to
could
the
not
were
take
the
them
biggest
right.
winners of this.
This wasn't
Before,
strange.
There was
She
Daoist
smiled.
at that time.
It's not our
This
Daoist
woman was
G.
we managed
already
to save our
late
lives
stage
with
of
great
foundation
difficulty. Some people
building
even
realm.
said
Later,
he was
if
a
she was
master
really
finally
master
however, when he made a venerable swordsman,
he was
Zhong
Grand
Wan also happened.
It
He
was
often
normal
set up
for
his
her
only
to
then that we
advance,
found
and
out
people
the
would
unknown
unknowingly
stage
fall
of the
into
core
his
formation
training
realm.
realm.
Therefore,
The treasures in Mount
even though his
Lang,
tone
Mo
divided
Tinga
herself,
he was dared to
in
be
the middle
careless in his
stage
heart,
of the foundation.
and
The
was
benefits
extremely
of Jing Xingji,
But
now
now
she had also
obtained,
since he had
couldn't
already
be
made his
formation.
move.
That was
she
no
roughly
reason
told
for
an
him.
entire
As soon as they saw Master
Jing
Song
Xingji
found
paused,
treasures.
didn't say
Ding Wan,
presumably,
although he liked
there were only a
Xiao
few
runs
more
hard
than the
was
collective. The sound of the flute
changed
changed
the
the
sound
sound
of
of
the
the
zip.
He was even
Even
more
if
the
many
many
of
of
them
them
could
which
be
was
used
originally
anymore.
as
At
deep
least
still
as
a
the
yellow
yellow
Jing she
sky
promised to take
but
some
even
with him.
so,
became
he
I
would
really
not
don't have a good
refuse.
impression of this
Jing
person.
Xingji,
He's much
on the
more
other hand,
trustworthy than
kept
Kumu.
fawning on her
She
along
was
the way,
stimulated
but
by
after
the venerable
truly
swordsman
regarded
Zhong
her
Wan
as
passed away.
and he felt the
However,
spiritual
for a lot
aura
this woman was a
unfair
core
to
formation
her.
cultivator.
He
He almost
almost
couldn't
in this
control
situation.
this.
So
One
he
immediately
immediately
steadied his mind and
Mo
Tinga
Tinga
didn't
know.
know.
Moreover,
decision Jing
frivolous.
Mo
Insignificant.
Tinga, he's not the
turned to look
same
at the
kind of
woman
person.
Master
and found that her
Song
martial
Feng,
arts
upon hearing
skills
what
were
she
much
said,
better
a
than
black
Jing
object
Xingji's
suddenly
smile.
flew
Martial
out of his
cultivators
grip.
were the same.
Its
Jing
Jing
Xingji
Xingji
had been
extremely
flirting with her
fast.
on They had to surpass
Although he didn't
ordinary
take smash
cultivators.
towards the
He always
lights
felt
and foam
uncomfortable.
power.
As
Now
soon
that
as
he
he
heard
heard
black
cultivation
object
level,
he
left
felt
the
the
more
more
terrifying
terrifying
song
song
fangs
fangs
black.
appeared.
Although this woman was so
fancy
fancy
to be like
early
those
stage, in an
in
instant,
superficial
it became like a
people
small
who,
mountain
judging from the power
and
of
suddenly
her attack.
pressed
Even
down.
if she
Jing
wasn't
Xingji's
weaker than
face
ordinary
was like a
middle
stage
blossom,
formation
seeing
tongues
this
was
the
laid
sound
on
of the
each
wand.
she still
And
with
Mo
Mo
Tinga's
heart.
heart
The two of
was
them were
also
silently
simple.
enjoying a
If she
moment of
joined
peace.
hands with
But
this
this time,
Mo
it wasn't
Tinga
so
easy
easy
to
suddenly
help.
remember.
But if she
Master
turned
Song
against her,
Feng
as your
grinned
spiritual
his
father,
aura,
there
the
were
small
really
mountain
Jing
broke through
Xingji
the net of
everywhere.
music.
I have the yang
After a while,
pressed down on the
Jing
two of them.
Xingji
So my
finally
spiritual said,
aura
Ding
recovers
Wan,
much
faster.
If we can join hands for a long
then
time,
let's do it.
the couple looked up, paused for a moment,
stopped playing.
In any
suddenly
case,
understood.
and each through the
she
zit
chose
of
to
words,
believe flute.
she deliberately
Jing
let
Jing
these
Sing
two
miss
magic
the
weapons
Jing
carry
Sing
just now
extremely
said,
dense,
spiritual
thinking up to this
cultivator
point,
from Guji
and under the
Tinga,
support of the
may I
couple
ask if your
spiritual
face or
aura,
song fangs
they
decide
suddenly
coughed and
burst.
said,
As soon as he said,
then
"Then let's talk about
black
later."
clothes.
Jing
She
said,
felt it was
when I said this
turned
meeting
around
was
honest
honest,
and glanced
so
at
he
the
couldn't
two
help
but
casual.
raise his hand.
Jing
Tinga
Tinga
smiled and
stunned,
said to her,
spiritual life.
"What did you
Miss,
see?
This wasn't the
Don't
first
worry.
time he
We
saw
don't have any
Mace's
bad
soul
intentions.
cultivated.
With
his fog is really
he
didn't have extraordinarily powerful
and iron
traps
followed us to
so are you willing
so
to
his
join
visions,
him?
I'm sure his woman stared at them for a while.
However,
Mo
Tinga knew nothing about
Jing still felt he
character.
couldn't watch them.
There are
So she
dangers
couldn't say
everywhere.
nascent soul cultivators.
However,
Nascent,
although
she was never a person who talked nonsense.
Although he was
Alone.
only
Since
one
he said
step
it, having
away
an extra
from
helper
his realm
also means having an
strength
extra
was still
case.
far from
Won't he implicate
If
us?
he had already formed
Gene,
his
she shook his
when he
soul
said
now.
that.
Let's wait and see.
Even
Even
if he was
although he and I aren't
very
very
nascent.
we've been friends.
The woman
for
looked at him
decades.
and wouldn't be
Then
completely
Mo is a person who
Tinga
values
facing
who was resisting
but he
the
won't
gold
Master
wire
Song
rat
Phone
attacks behind
Ding
Mo's,
Won and
her vigilant
expression
fighting slowly
softened.
But there was also
when
a
she opened her
quiet
mouth,
you believe him, she said in a low, Taoist voice. Upon hearing
what if we join hands?
she smiled.
Hearing
said
softly.
Jing Singji smiled.
When we go
and
back,
said,
rumor
naturally,
had it
that when
we'll
we
join
traveled
hands to
outside,
protect ourselves.
people often
naturally
regarded
understood
as
the
an
meaning
aura
of her
refining
way.
disciple.
The woman's
lips
lips
curled into a
this.
smile. Let's
But
talk
when it
about
came
the
to
fight.
fighting,
She was mocking.
she was no
stunned.
less
Have you found a way
ruthless
out?
than
Didn't she
No.
agree?
James
Tinga
Tinga
looked away.
It was unknown,
However,
many blind
the three of us
go
are
back
safer than
by
most.
you'll enter
Mo
closed
Tinga
door
had to
meditation
admit
in his
that when
former
Jing
Nascent
in the
Sing's
spiritual
expression
light
of the
series,
this
this
was almost
he was indeed. He already said that he failed
under his
form
gaze.
nascent.
This
soul
woman
gradually
gradually
she couldn't
became
see their
because
movements
he missed
clearly.
her.
He
But
tried
he knew
everything he
this
could.
was
How can I
bad
trust
stuff.
you? Couldn't get
Therefore,
Jing
he
Singji
quietly
now
took
said
out
with
a
a
committed
smile,
talisman
with what's the
character
benefit of
back
killing you
and
and
naturally
naturally
go
go
back.
back? Besides, the jade
Since you
talisman
can reach a
burst
mortal
course,
flames,
you must have
said,
soared into the
when we
sky.
find your father's
Even if you fall out, we can go
spiritual
back.
light.
You must have a
Now
way
that
to
everything
escape.
is ready,
this time,
right?
we won't have to
After
worry
he
about
said that,
forming our
the woman was
the jade
lost in
talisman
thought.
seeing that she
Disappeared
didn't
into the
flash.
sky.
A
Gene,
group of
she's
gold
expression
wire
of
rats
slowly
in front of her.
darkened.
The devil
Kinga,
aura
will you
on with a
master
flash of
song
Why do I
of
feel like I
body
still
Jing
can't
Singji's
understand?
flying
And he
sword
You're not
like
willing to
waterfall.
rely on me
Chin
too
showed
much.
wherever the sword
So what the hell are
lies
you
in.
doing now?
Flesh and
Chin,
blood
she smiled.
flew
He
everywhere.
knew this old man
The group
wouldn't
of
let him
gold
go
wire rats
easily,
died
even
on
though
the
he
spot.
hadn't dealt with
After
him
the
yet.
death of this group
Nothing.
of gold
Junior
wire
just wanted to
rats,
inform my
the other
master
gold wire
that there's a
rats
good
that
show to
besieged
watch.
them also
Master
attacked.
Song Fong
The
didn't
three
say
of them
anything
didn't dare
for a
to
while,
neglect,
but the
and
black
immediately
aura
worked
on his
together
body kept
to kill
surging
these violent
as if it was
demonic
brewing,
beasts.
and he might attack
Originally,
Qin in the next
Jing
moment.
Singji
His attention was
and
focused on
Tinga
Qin. Didn't have enough.
So how could the
lethality,
three nascent
because
soul
Mo
cultivators
didn't
let
have a
go
suitable
of this
magic
opportunity?
weapon? However,
Ding Wan
this
shouted.
woman was a
She
martial
held the
cultivator
zither with one hand,
so she killed
and held
demonic
the strings with the
beasts
other,
much
then
faster
suddenly
than
pulled
ordinary
and
cultivators.
loosened it.
With
The
the three of
strings
them working
suddenly
together,
let out a
the number of
buzzing
gold
sound,
wire rats
and the spiritual
gradually
sound
decreased.
suddenly
More than an
spread
hour
out.
later,
All
Feng
the
Shao
gold wire
turned his
rats
fingers
were finally
and
killed.
clasped the jade
The three
flute.
of them
Then he
working
brought it
together
to his
to
lips
kill the demonic
and blew
beast
it
was
in a relaxed
fact
manner.
an alliance.
The husband and wife,
After killing,
one attacking,
the three of
and
them
one
were so
defending,
tired that
one
Mo,
tightening
Tinga,
and one loosening,
couldn't even stand steadily.
cooperated seamlessly.
Xiahua,
Even though
simply lay
Master
down
Song
and
Fong
stuck out
was
his
known
tongue.
as the number
The
one
three of them sat on the
cultivator in
ground in
celestial
different
poles,
postures.
He didn't dare to
gasping
look
for
down
breath.
on them. The
After
black
a while,
aura
they
on
finally
his
got
body
the
became
breath.
thicker and
Jing
thicker,
Singji smiled
and
at
it
the
suddenly
woman and
scattered
said,
like a drop
"Miss,
of ink.
may I know your name?"
The black aura
A hint
on
of
Master
hesitation
Song
flashed
Feng's
in the
body
woman's
was known as
eyes,
primordial
and she
devil
answered.
aura.
If
If
this
this
primordial
primordial
devil
Jing
aura
Singji was
danced,
stunned.
it would be like gales
Wushang,
and thunder
charming
with
Wushang,
amazing power.
Nickang Wushang.
The primordial
No,
devil
her
aura
expression was
scattered
cold
and condensed
and
into a long
emotionless.
saber.
It's called
that was about
nothing,
to chop the
and it's called
lawn and
Wushang.
phone couple.
Jing
But in an
Singji
instant,
had never
the
heard
black
such a name
long
in his life,
saber
so he
suddenly
didn't know what
changed
to say
direction
for a
and
moment.
chopped to the right side
Wushang.
and back.
This really didn't sound
there
like
was
a
a
woman's
scream.
name. It was
After a long
Daoist
time,
Ji. He could
who
only
had just
praise
quietly hid
what a
behind
special
Master
name.
Song Feng.
The woman who called
Hearing
herself
Daoist
Nye
Ji
Wushang
scream
showed
Qin-Shi's
a
first
mocking
thought
smile
was
on
that
her
this
face
person
and
really
didn't
wasn't
answer.
mute.
Then he
Jing
thought that
Singji.
Master Song Feng was worthy of being
Upon
a
hearing
great
Jing
cultivator
Singji's
in the
self-introduction,
late nascent soul
Nye
stage.
Wushang,
Even a
just
bystander
nodded,
like him
then turned to
couldn't
Mo
see
Tinga
through him and said,
in the middle of fight,
fellow Taoist
Master
Mo,
Song Feng
long time
could
no
actually
see.
beat him at his
Do you
own
still
game
remember me?
and create a
Mo
diversion.
Tinga nodded. She was neither affectionate nor distant, and she replied with the same indifference. Of course I remember. Unfortunately, I didn't know fellow Taoist's name until today. Cultivators always had good memories, so it wasn't surprising that they remembered
remembered each other. However, Imo Tienga still had doubts in her heart. Back then, this woman was no different from ordinary cultivators, but today she had been using ventriloquism and her voice was also quite strange. From beginning to end, she hadn't opened her mouth to speak. Could it be that something had changed in the past 50 years? However, they originally didn't have any friendship. They could even be said to be enemies. Imo Tienga only thought about it in her heart and didn't ask. After a few simple words, the three of them staggered to recover their spiritual aura. After a while, Jing Xingji finished meditating and asked Nia Wushang, "Miss Nia, how long have you been here? Do you have any clues about how to get out?" Nia Wushang answered, about a day. My divine sense is useless here, and I've lost all sense of direction. I haven't been able to find a way out. Her situation was similar to theirs. Jing Xingji turned to look at Mo Tiange and said, we're the same. However, along the way, fellow Taoist Qing Wei left a formation imprint. I wonder if you've noticed it? Were you the ones who drew that 8 trigrams formation? Nia Wushang frowned. Mo Tiange answered, yes. In that case, fellow Taoist, Nia has encountered it along the way? Nia Wushang nodded. I've encountered it a few times. Unfortunately, I'm not very proficient in formations, so I don't know how to point to it. A few times? We've been following the directions of the 8 trigrams formation. If fellow Taoist has encountered it several times, it means fellow Taoist has gone around several times. I see. Nia Wushang was stunned. She then asked in a low voice, so fellow Taoists still have a way to get out? Mo Tiange's expression was indifferent. I'm not sure about that. Nobody knows how big this fog is, and we don't know whether our direction is correct. In this fog, even our divine senses can make mistakes, and formation diagrams aren't completely reliable. What she said wasn't false. Formation diagrams could only point to the direction, but they couldn't point to the correct path. Moreover, since this fog could affect divine senses, could it also affect other judgments? They didn't know. The 3 of them were silent for a while. Jing Xingji said, young missus, have you recovered your spiritual aura? I've recovered. With a small circulation inside her body, Mo Tiange recovered her spiritual aura very quickly. Nia Wushang also nodded. Jing Xingji said, then what do you think about the rest of our journey? Mo Tiange didn't answer immediately. She turned to look at Nia Wushang. Nia Wushang lowered her head and also didn't answer. After a moment of silence, Jing Xingji said, ladies, this is related to our lives. If you have something to say, you'd better say it now. Right now, he didn't have a smile on his face. Instead, he looked at them seriously. I have nothing to say. Mo Tiange was the first to speak. She said faintly, to be frank, my strength is inferior to yours. I only know a little about formations, that's all. Using formation diagrams to point out the direction is the only way I can think of. Jing Xingji and Nia Wushang didn't answer. After a moment of silence, Nia Wushang's low and hoarse voice rang out. Fellow Taoist, you have this 5th-ranked spiritual beast, so your strength isn't weak. You're being too modest. Mo Tiange smiled. I'm just speaking the truth. Spiritual beasts are too weak compared to cultivators. But fellow Taoist magic weapon is also extraordinary. Nia Wushang raised her eyebrows and smiled. Her smile didn't seem to be a simple one. The previous few times, it was always filled with ridicule, but this time, it had a different meaning. Mo Tiange pretended she didn't see anything and smiled slightly. Fellow Taoist Nia, you flatter me. Nia Wushang continued. Fellow Taoist Mo, I heard your master and senior martial brother both came to Demonic Mountain, but why are you alone? Mo Tiange glanced at her, then said flatly, they have another purpose. Is that so? Nia Wushang smiled again. This time, her smile finally had a charming feeling, but it seemed a bit gloomy. Fellow Taoist Mo, you can't contact them, right? Mo Tiange didn't move, but Jing Xingji's sword was unsheathed with a swish. The sword light approached Nia Wushang. Nia Wushang, however, didn't move. She raised her head and smiled at Jing Xingji. Fellow Taoist Jing, what are you doing? You have nothing to do with Xianqing school, right? Jing Xingji's gaze was as cold as ice. He said coldly, I have even less to do with Master Songfeng. Huh. Nia Wushang still ignored the motionless flying sword hovering in front of her. She said, I heard fellow Taoist Mo already has a Taoist name now. When I first met you several decades ago, I really didn't expect this day would come so quickly. Fellow Taoist is worthy of being Lord Taoist Jinghe's brilliant disciple. Mo Tiange sat still and replied, Fellow Taoist Nia, you flatter me. To be honest, Nia Wushang stared at Mo Tiange, her expression gradually turning cold. I'm not jealous of fellow Taoist Mo's talent, but I'm extremely jealous of fellow Taoist Mo's experiences. A disciple of a famous school, a nascent soul master, and he loves his disciple as much as his own life. Fellow Taoist life is really good. By the end of her speech, Nie Wuxiang was no longer looking at Mo Tiange. Instead, she was smiling a bit absent-mindedly. Jing Xingji's expression changed. The sword light flashed, and he withdrew. Fellow Taoist Nie, what do you mean by saying all this? Chapter 297. Nothing. Nie Wuxiang stood up, pulled on her gloves, and said expressionlessly, I'm not like fellow Taoist Mo. Aside from brute force, I have no other strong points. I'll listen to you two fellow Taoists on how to get out. After a while, Jing Xingji sheathed his sword and sat back down. I have an idea, but I don't know if fellow Taoists are willing to give a try. Mo Tiange and Nie Wuxiang immediately turned to him. Jing Xingji said, It's easy to say, but there's a certain risk. Mo Tiange said, We were just lucky to be trapped here. If we encounter any troublesome demonic beasts, how good can we be? If fellow Taoist Jing has an idea, you might as well tell us. Nie Wuxiang also nodded expressionlessly and didn't object. Jing Xingji smiled and pointed above. Since we can't tell the direction, we might as well fly up. There's always an end to this fog, right? Both Mo Tiange and Nie Wuxiang were stunned. Mo Tiange pondered for a moment, then said, But fellow Taoist Jing, there's a mortal aura above immortals' ruins. We don't have immortals' bodies, so we can't stand immortal aura at all. What if we run into it? Jing Xingji said, This is the risk I'm talking about. This immortal aura shouldn't exist in the human world, so immortal aura has a repulsive effect on many things. This fog must be the same. I'm sure there's a gap between the fog and immortal aura. If we're lucky, we can leave through this gap. Mo Tiange and Nie Wuxiang were lost in thought. They ruled out this method from the beginning because there was a mortal aura above immortals' ruins. The powerful power in immortal aura was quite terrifying for cultivators like them. But Jing Xingji's words weren't unreasonable. They didn't know how long they could stay trapped in the fog like this. The group of gold wire rats, just now, were all below the 5th rank, but they were already so difficult to deal with. What if they encountered demonic beasts above the 5th rank? They might as well try their luck. Maybe they could really get out. Okay, Mo Tiange made up her mind. I think fellow Taoist Jing's idea is feasible. Nie Wuxiang also nodded. Her hoarse voice rang out. Fellow Taoists, are the seniors of your sect nearby? Mo Tiange and Jing Xingji looked at each other, and Jing Xingji said, Fellow Taoist Nie, do you mean sending a message? That's right. Nie Wuxiang shifted her gaze between the two of them and said, Of course, the two of you can also refuse. Perhaps the one who comes first will be my master at that time. Mo Tiange's eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. From what Nie Wuxiang said, it seemed she was really Master Songfeng's disciple. Moreover, Master Songfeng also came to Demonic Mountain. This wasn't good news. Although Master Songfeng wasn't a good person, there was no doubt that he was strong. Furthermore, he had old grudges against both Lord Taoist Jinghe and Qin Shi. Qin Shi was in this. Not to Taoist Jingji Shan, Qin Master, and in Taoist Mo Ashang. Mo. With his thought in mind, Mo Tiange glanced at Jing Xingji. Wang Nie from. Wang Wu from. From. Forget it. We don't have many thousand miles summoning talismans. Let's talk about it after we're sure we can get out. Mo Tiange was relieved. She was really worried Master Songfeng would come. The three of them did as they said. First of all, they had to find a suitable place to fly up. Core formation cultivators could fly high in the sky, but the fog here was unclear, so they had to be careful. Second, they had to prepare defensive magic weapons and talismans for emergencies. Finally, the three of them were in trouble together, but they weren't of one mind, so they had to guard against others. Mo Tiange didn't dare to trust either of them. Nie Wuxiang was Master Songfeng's disciple, and Jing Xingji was ruthless. She couldn't trust either of them. She was the weakest among the three, so they had to be careful. After a while, the three of them finally found a suitable place to fly up. This should also be a relic of the fight between immortals and demons in the distant past era. The neat rocks were cut off, exposing the horrible greenish-gray inside. After millions of years of weathering, they no longer had sharp edges, but they still retained their strange appearance. Jing Xingji flew several dozen feet up to check the situation. He then came down and said, "Let's do it here. It doesn't look abnormal." Emo Tinga also went up to take a look. Seeing nothing abnormal, she nodded in agreement. Nie Wushang, on the other hand, looked casual and didn't look at it carefully. The three of them then sat in meditation and rested, preparing magic weapons, talismans, and the like. After a long time, Jing Xingji asked, "Fellow Taoists, are you ready?" If he had the intention of seducing someone, he'd call them Miss. Now that he called them fellow Taoists, it was clear he'd change his mind. Emo Tinga and Nie Wushang both nodded. Nie Wushang was a martial cultivator, so she didn't have much to prepare. Emo Tinga, on the other hand, had always been cautious and put her things in the most convenient places. That being the case, let's get started. Wait, Nie Wushang's voice rang out. The three of us go up together? Wouldn't it be more convenient to leave one person outside? Jing Xingji smiled. Among the three of us, who's more reassuring to stay down there? Nie Wushang and Emo Tinga were speechless. Indeed, the three of them didn't trust each other, so staying behind to look after each other was unnecessary. If something really happened up there, they could only blame it on their bad luck. The three of them silently took out their flying magic weapons, operated their protective spiritual aura, and began to fly up. This process was very slow, very similar to the situation when they climbed tens of thousands of feet peak before. However, it was very likely that they would encounter immortal aura instead of devil aura, so they also had to carefully avoid it or use their protective spiritual aura to block it. The three of them flew higher and higher, getting farther and farther away from the ground. Emo Tinga looked down. She didn't know why, but she felt a bit restless. She was now a core formation cultivator, so her perception of the mandate of heaven was much stronger than before. This was indeed not a good sign. She looked at Jing Xingji and found that he was also looking at her with a frown. Her heart stirred. Just as she was about to ask him in secret, she suddenly felt her ankle being pulled down by someone. She didn't have time to think too much. Her flying sword flew out of her sleeve and flew close to her ankle. At the same time, she looked down. With a single glance, he was astonished. She originally thought it was one of the two people who sneak attacked her, but she didn't expect it to be a hand that stretched out from the rock wall. Emo Tinga had wandered in the cultivation world for many years, but this was the first time she encountered such a strange scene. She felt her scalp go numb, and she was so shocked that she almost cut off her foot. In a flash, Jing Xingji grabbed her hand and slashed down with his flying sword. His flying sword was an ancient magic weapon that could be called the same as Qin Shi's three-yong real fire sword. With one slash, that rock hand was cut off. After being cut off, those rocks seemed to have lost their vitality and fell one after another. Emo Tinga didn't have time to breathe a sigh of relief. On the other side, Nie Wushang let out a soft cry and was also entangled by these rock hands. Immediately afterward, countless rock hands stretched out from the cliff they were facing and tried to grab them. The three of them fought with these rock hands. Jing Xingji was fine. His flying sword was very sharp, so these rocks couldn't withstand his slash. Nie Wushang was slightly more difficult to deal with. Her boxing gloves were covered with spikes. If it was something else, it wouldn't be able to withstand a single punch from her. However, these rocks weren't afraid of spikes at all, so she had to use more strength than usual to smash these rocks. Emo Tinga's situation was similar to Nie Wushang's. She didn't have many offensive magic weapons on her, and the water element jade bottle and the earth element stone seal weren't suitable for the current situation. Her remaining flying sword wasn't as good as Jing Xingji's, so it was very strenuous for her to slash them. Emo Tinga found that using the flying sword consumed her spiritual aura very quickly. so she quickly stopped. She released Xiaohua from her spiritual beast bag and let it stand on her shoulder. She then used the sun real fire to burn these rock hands, which finally made things a bit easier. After fighting for a while, the three of them finally escaped from the rock hands. They flew some distance away before they stopped and didn't dare to approach again. The three of them looked at each other. Then Mo Tinga asked, "Fellow Taoists, what is this thing?" Nie Wuxiang shook her head with a pale face. Although she wasn't weak, these strange rocks were extremely hard, which happened to restrain her. Right now, she was fighting a bit awkwardly. "I've never encountered such a strange thing. How can rocks be like living things?" Jing Xingji waved his hand, surrounding himself with sword lights. He said, "I also don't know. However, it's not surprising that there are strange things on Demonic Mountain." That was true. The world was so big that nothing was too strange, let alone a strange place like Demonic Mountain. The environment here was different from a human world. Perhaps the rules of the human world simply didn't apply here. The three of them were silent for a while. In the end, Nie Wuxiang said, "Forget it. It's not the time to look into this. Since we've already flown here, let's continue." Mo Tinga nodded in agreement. "I have no objection. What about fellow Taoist Jing?" Jing Xingji answered. Compared to them, he was the most relaxed. Although he had been fighting for a while, he almost didn't lose any spiritual aura. After being attacked by the rock hands, the three of them became even more cautious. Flying high in the sky, full of gales, restrictions, and immortal aura wasn't safe. After flying for a while, they reached the end of the cliff they climbed. Mo Tinga took a look and found that there were a lot of pink ball-like flowers growing on the hilltop, which looked very familiar. After looking for a while, she suddenly let out a cry of surprise and pointed at those pink ball-like flowers. "Fellow Taoists, look! Are those the heavenly fragrant flowers that grow heavenly aromatic beans?" Nie Wuxiang only glanced at them, then looked away with disinterest. "I'm not proficient in spiritual plants, so I can't recognize them." Jing Xingji looked at her with a somewhat strange expression, then nodded. "Probably. Heavenly aromatic herbs aren't very rare on Demonic Mountain. I once heard people talk about them, and they indeed look very similar." Upon hearing his affirmation, Mo Tinga hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still gave up. Forget it. She absolutely didn't dare to take any more risks after what happened just now. At worst, she'd just buy some heavenly aromatic beans when they got out. Chapter 298. As the three of them flew up, the fog became thinner and the immortal aura got closer and closer. Seeing that the immortal aura formed by the fallen immortals was right in front of them, the three of them couldn't help but stop. At that moment, even Jing Xingji looked hesitant. They guessed that there was a gap between the immortal aura and the fog. Now, the immortal aura was right in front of them, but the fog hadn't reached its end. No one knew whether they would explode because of touching the immortal aura if they flew up again. What should they do next? Fellow Taoist Jing. Before Mo Tinga could finish speaking, Jing Xingji flew up again. Mo Tinga and Nie Wuxiang glanced at each other and eventually followed him. The fog became thinner and thinner, and the immortal aura around them also became more and more abundant. The three of them had to spend more time blocking the immortal aura. This process was very complicated. They constantly consumed and replenished their spiritual aura. Mo Tinga occasionally looked down and saw that the mountain below had become a small dot. After a long time, she heard Jing Xingji call out in surprise, "Fellow Taoists, look!" Mo Tinga looked up and saw that above the thin fog, there was a light without any obstruction. They finally rushed out of the fog. The three of them felt like they were reborn. They were trapped in the fog for just over a day, but the feeling that they couldn't get rid of the fog, no matter where they went, made them feel like it was a long time. After a moment of silence, Jing Xingji said, "Fellow Taoists, we're out of the fog. The most dangerous moment is below us. Don't lower your guard." Mo Tinga and Nie Wuxiang regained their senses and nodded. They both had quiet personalities, which was something Jing Xingji was very glad about. He liked women, but he hated others who held him back when he was in danger. Fortunately, these two didn't have bad tempers. The immortal aura was very close to them, so they had to be very careful every time they flew. Fortunately, they were out of the fog and could clearly distinguish the direction. 10,000 feet peak was to their south, but there was a big volcano to their north, so they chose the west as their escape route. About half a day later, the three of them got out of the fog without danger and descended to the ground. Tinga finally breathed a sigh of relief. She was always on edge when she was with these two, but now it was finally over. Fellow Taoists. As soon as she landed, Nie Wuxiang's gaze rested on the two of them for a moment before she said, "Since we're out of the fog, I'll take my leave now." Jing Xingji smiled and said, "Why is fellow Taoist Nie in such a hurry? Although we're out of the fog, this is the Immortal's ruins. There are still dangers everywhere." The corners of Nie Wuxiang's mouth curled up, revealing a somewhat mocking smile. "Fellow Taoist Jing, just take it that I'm a coward. If I'm not careful and run into your masters, I don't want this life of mine." After she finished speaking, she activated her flying magic weapon, turned around, and left without saying anything. Tinga stared at her back and sighed inwardly. Putting aside the fact that she was Master Songfang's disciple, Nie Wuxiang wasn't annoying. Unfortunately, she was still Master Songfang's disciple. After a moment of silence, Jing Xingji said, "Let's go." However, Tinga didn't move. When Jing Xingji turned around, she said, "Fellow Taoist Jing, I still have to find Senior Marshal Brother Shoujing. May I know where you're going?" Jing Xingji raised his eyebrows and asked, "Do you want to part ways with me?" If fellow Taoist Jing has another purpose, then yes. Tinga said bluntly, "For me, the most important thing is to find Senior Marshal Brother Shoujing, so I can't go somewhere else with fellow Taoist Jing first." Fellow Taoist Jing? Jing Xingji didn't say anything, but he also didn't leave. After a long time, Tinga called him again when she didn't get an answer from him. Jing Xingji smiled, then suddenly sighed. "Qin Shoujing, his life is really good." Not long ago, Nie Wuxiang said this to her, and now Jing Xingji also said the same thing to her. Tinga had a feeling that this was absurd. In fact, cultivation was about not believing in fate. Since ancient times, how many people had ascended to immortality and become immortals? Since the separation of immortals and devils, there were only a few who entered the deification realm, let alone becoming immortals. Nevertheless, for hundreds of thousands of years, countless cultivators still rushed to enter this cruel cultivation world. They didn't believe in fate that they couldn't ascend to immortality. But now, both Nie Wuxiang and Jing Xingji said the same thing. Was his life good? Maybe Qin Shi's life was very smooth, but everything he had today definitely wasn't just because his life was good. Maybe she was the same. Although she wandered from place to place before she was 20, she gradually had everything after she turned 20. But these things also didn't fall from the sky. Whether it was Jing Xingji or Nie Wuxiang, both of them presumably understood these principles, but they both said the same thing. There could only be one explanation. They had too many sad stories in their hearts. Tinga wasn't a talkative person, and she also wasn't interested in prying into other people's privacy, so she didn't answer and asked, "Where does fellow Taoist Jing want to go?" In an instant, Jing Xingji's expression returned to its previous frivolous expression. He said indifferently, "If I want to find Qin Shoujing, then I'll go. This is a mortal's ruins, and it's always dangerous to go alone." She didn't know whether he was referring to himself or her by danger. A thought flashed through Tinga's mind. Then she said, "All right. In that case, thank you for your kindness, fellow Taoist Jing." Jing Xingji waved his hand, not caring at all. Tinga thought for a moment, then tried to send a summoning talisman. This time, the summoning talisman was sent out, but it fell as soon as it entered the fog. "It seems Qin Shoujing is still in the fog. You'd better not waste the summoning talisman," Jing Xingji said. Mo Tienga regretfully watched the summoning talisman fall to the ground and burn to ashes. She was a bit disheartened. Do I have to go back? Jing Xingji thought for a moment, then asked, Don't you have any other methods of communication? This reminded Mo Tienga. It wasn't that there weren't other methods of communication, but they weren't as effective as the summoning talisman. Anyway, she didn't have any other methods, so she could give it a try. She took out a jade box from her robe and opened it. Inside were several yellow wax-like objects. They were amber. She gave them to her in Kuanzhong City. He said they would emit a strange fragrance after they were burned. As long as they weren't far away, he could smell them. She didn't care at that time, but she didn't expect to use them now. Jing Xingji was stunned when he saw them. He said, He actually gave them to you? Mo Tienga looked up and glanced at Jing Xingji. Fellow Taoist Jing, do you recognize them? Jing Xingji didn't answer but asked, Do you know how I met Qin Shoujing? I know a little. Jing Xingji smiled then sighed. Back then, he didn't even have a Taoist name. In a flash, so many years have passed. Qin Shoujing's name has spread throughout Kanwu, but only a few people know his real name. Mo Tienga didn't answer. That was an era very far away from her. At that time, she didn't exist in this world. Jing Xingji sighed with emotion for a while, then said, This thing was obtained from an ancient immortal's abode when we first met. Although it's not very useful, there should only be a few pieces in this world in his hands. Using this to communicate is a good method. This kind of fragrance is very special. If he really got lost, it might be able to guide him out. Moreover, it won't easily attract other people's attention. Upon receiving Jing Xingji's affirmation, Mo Tienga smiled. If that's really the case, that'd be the best. Then, just in case, the two of them flew a certain distance in silence. After making sure there was no one around, they sat down and burned the amber. As the flames burned, a strange fragrance they'd never smelled before slowly drifted away. Next, they could only wait. Not long after, maybe only about 2 hours, Jing Xingji suddenly moved and stood up. Someone's coming. Mo Tienga spread her divine sense, but was stunned. This is a powerful spiritual aura fluctuation came from the sky. It was definitely not Qin Shi, but a nascent soul cultivator. The two of them glanced at each other. Jing Xingji only had time to say, late-stage nascent soul. A powerful spiritual aura pressure came down from above. A black cloud floated over. Mo Tienga looked up and saw that familiar black cloud. Her expression froze. Master Song Phone. It's them? An arrogant hoarse voice came from the black cloud. Next to the black cloud, Nie Wushang's indifferent expression swept over Jing Xingji and Mo Tienga. Yes, Master. Although Master Songfeng's body was hidden in the black cloud, Mo Tienga could still feel his malicious gaze sweeping over her and Jing Xingji's clothes. She didn't change out of Xianxing School's Taoist robes on this trip, so she couldn't avoid it now. They'd cautiously left the place where they parted ways with Nie Wushang, but they were still easily found. Mo Tienga felt a chill rising from her heart. She'd lived for more than 80 years and cultivated until she reached the core formation realm. She'd encountered many dangerous situations and experienced many life or death crises, but she'd never been as nervous as she was now. The number one cultivator in the celestial pole, the number one person in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, in front of Master Songphone. Even if she was already in the core formation realm, she was still like an aura-refining cultivator, vulnerable at the first blow. She closed her eyes and silently ran the soul-refining art. Only then did she calm down under Master Songfeng's spiritual aura pressure. At this time, Jing Xingji gave her a meaningful look. Mo Tienga could see he was telling her not to act rashly. Master Songfeng's lazy voice came from the black cloud. Girl, are you the disciple of that old man Xinjingha? Mo Tienga's expression didn't change. She didn't even have to salute and answered calmly. Yes, senior is Master Songfeng. Huh. Master Songfeng's voice was slightly surprised. Qin Jinghe taught his disciples well. Ma Xianin and Qin Shoujing aren't bad. Girl, your cultivation level isn't good, but you're quite courageous. Mo Tienga curled up the corners of her mouth and forced a smile. Thank you for your praise, Senior. But Senior definitely didn't come here to praise Junior, right? Junior is timid. How about Senior give Junior a quick death? Upon hearing what she said, a low, hoarse laugh came from the black cloud. Master Song Feng said, Girl, you're quite interesting. You're much more pleasing to the eye than that old man Qin Jinghe. But it's a pity that you have a master like Qin Jinghe and a senior martial brother like Qin Shoujing. You can only consider yourself unlucky to run into my hands today. Presumably, venerable swordsman Yuanying of Gujin's sect wouldn't seek revenge on Master Songfeng for a core formation junior, no matter how talented the junior was. Jing Xingji's heart was incomparably clear. Hearing those words, he clenched his fists tightly. But in the end, he did not say anything. Master Songfeng's invisible gaze once again fell on Mo Tienga. Although this late-stage nascent soul cultivator in front of her didn't have a physical body, Mo Tienga could clearly feel his might. Senior, under this kind of pressure, she chose to speak first. What advice does Senior have for me? How could I dare to give advice to Qin Jinghe's disciple? Master Songfeng said sarcastically. Soon after, he said proudly, You don't need to take chances. I just happened to run into Qin Jinghe and the others. Your master clearly told others that Qin Shoujing already has a sweetheart who's also his disciple. That Qin Shoujing also said he got separated from you here and was very anxious. Presumably, aside from you, there can't be anyone else in his heart, right? Upon hearing what Master Songfeng said, Mo Tienga's heart was filled with joy. In that case, senior martial brother Shoujing had already met up with Master, and she could rest assured. With Master here, senior martial brother Shoujing would definitely be fine. Thinking up to this point, although the current situation was still a dead end for her, Mo Tienga's mood became better. She smiled and said to Master Songfeng, Since I've fallen into Senior's hands, Junior has nothing to say. I wonder how Senior will deal with Junior? Her abnormally relaxed attitude made Master Songfeng a bit puzzled. Aren't you afraid? What if I'm afraid? Mo Tienga said faintly, Will Senior let me go if I'm afraid? Junior has never done this kind of thing that's a waste of energy. The black cloud was quiet for a while, but Master Songfeng's laughter came from inside. Ha ha, you're really interesting, little girl. What a pity, what a pity. You just had to be that old fool Qin Jinghe's disciple. His voice turned cold, and he said with an evil smile, Qin Jinghe's last disciple, Qin Shoujing's sweetheart. God is really on my side. If I kill you, those two people will definitely be in so much pain that they'll wish they were dead, right? Master Songfeng's gloomy voice sent a chill down Mo Tienga's back. She composed herself and said, Senior thinks too highly of me. Junior's master and senior martial brother are both people with very firm Dao hearts. If Junior dies an unnatural death, maybe they'll be sad for a while. But for cultivators, the most important thing is still the path to immortality. Nothing will change. What she said wasn't just an excuse. It was also what she really thought. If she died, her master and senior martial brother Shoujing would naturally be sad for her. However, they were all cultivators, and for cultivators, what could be more important than the great Tao? No matter how sad something was, it would pass. Only the great Tao was the supreme pursuit. Thinking up to this point, Mo Tienga suddenly felt a bit depressed. She couldn't help but laugh at herself. Could it be that after confessing her feelings, she also became sentimental? What was so strange about that? They were cultivators. For cultivators, there might be unforgettable feelings, but they wouldn't be in so much pain that they'd wish they were dead. Master Nie Wushang, who was standing next to the black cloud, suddenly spoke. She stared at Mo Tienga and said, Master, if you want to kill her, can you let disciple do it? Fellow Taoist Nia. Jing Xingji couldn't help but say, Nia Wushang's gaze swept over them, but it didn't linger on Jing Xingji. She only looked respectfully at the black cloud. After a while, Master Songfeng's voice came from the black cloud. Do you want to compete with her? Nia Wushang said faintly. Disciple didn't defeat her several decades ago, so I'm not convinced. I hope Master can help me. Mo Tiange couldn't help but glance at Nia Wushang. Her expression was very calm. Mo Tiange couldn't tell whether she wanted to help her or not. However, if Master Song Feng agreed to this matter, it would definitely be beneficial to her. Although Nia Wushang was formidable, it wouldn't be a problem for her to hold on for less than an hour. At that time, Master Song Feng's cold humph interrupted her thoughts, but she heard him say, "Who said I wanted to kill her?" What he said stunned Mo Tiange and the other two. Nia Wushang was even more stunned for a while. She then said with some uncertainty, "Master, don't kill her." As soon as she finished speaking, another gust of strong wind swept past, leaving another red mark on her fair cheeks. Master Song Feng's impatient voice rang out. "You dare to guess this old man's thoughts?" Nia Wushang shut her mouth, lowered her head, and said nothing. This master and disciple really didn't look like master and disciple. Nia Wushang's respect towards Master Song Feng was more of fear, and Master Song Feng didn't cherish Nia Wushang at all. It could even be said that even a servant wouldn't lower himself to this extent, let alone a disciple. Mo Tiange suddenly understood what Nia Wushang said when they met. With such a master, it was no wonder she envied her good life. In comparison, her life was indeed much better. Master had never said a harsh word to her, and was always considerate of her. Mo Tiange didn't hate Nia Wushang because they were originally on opposite sides, so it was normal for Nia Wushang to turn around and tell her master about her whereabouts. Of course, she didn't love Nia Wushang because Nia Wushang was her enemy. Mo Tiange wasn't a person who would waste her sympathy casually. Now, seeing Nia Wushang without the slightest dignity in front of Master Song Feng, Mo Tiange only felt it was a pity. Chapter 300. Master. Inside the fog, Qin suddenly stopped and frowned. What's wrong? Lord Taoist Jinghe asked casually. Qin sniffed the smell in the air and said, Tiange might be sending a message. And Lord Taoist Jinghe tilted his head. Qin sniffed again and finally nodded with certainty. Yes, it's Tiange. Hearing his certainty, Lord Taoist Jinghe asked curiously, Is there any special communication method between you and Tiange? Qin said, Sort of. I didn't expect to use it at that time. Master, follow this smell. Tiange must be there. Lord Taoist Jinghe also sniffed. The smell in the air was very similar to the smell of flowers and plants. If he didn't pay attention, he might think it was the smell of nearby flowers and plants, but if he smelled it carefully, it seemed very unique. Since this guy was so sure, it must be his personal property. Following this smell, the two of them walked forward slowly. At first, they had to take their time to distinguish the smell, but as the smell became stronger, they walked faster and faster. The fog gradually faded, and in the blink of an eye, the two of them left the fog. Lord Taoist Jinghe said in surprise, This girl, she came out a long time ago. Qin, she was also very happy to see this. She's always been smart. I wonder what method she thought of. As they spoke, the two of them stopped. This was the place with the strongest smell. At the same time, Qin also found a pile of black ash on the ground, proving that the smell really came from here. But the strange thing was there was no one around. He spread his divine sense, but there was no one within dozens of miles. Master, Qin was puzzled. Did you find anyone around? Lord Taoist Jinghe shook his head. No. The divine sense of a nascent soul cultivator covered a large area, but there was no spiritual aura fluctuation of cultivators as far as his divine sense could reach. Lord Taoist Jinghe turned to look in the direction they came from and said, Could it be that she went inside again? Probably not. Qin frowned. Tiange has always been steady. Since she sent a message here, she should be waiting for us here unless it's been too long or something happened. Something happened. Lord Taoist Jinghe looked solemn. His eyes swept the surrounding scenery like lightning, and his expression suddenly changed. Not good. What's wrong? Qinshi asked anxiously. Master, what did you see? Lord Taoist Jinghe didn't answer right away. With a wave of his sleeve, a wisp of faint red spiritual aura filled the air and shrouded the surroundings. Gradually, a bit of black appeared in the faint red. Qinshi's expression also changed. This is demonic qi. Lord Taoist Jinghe frowned. There's no devil aura at all in Immortal's ruins. This devil aura is also very different from the devil aura on Demonic Mountain. I've only seen this kind of devil aura on one person. Qinshi didn't need to say anything because he already knew. He muttered, Master Song Feng, yes. Lord Taoist Jinghe's expression darkened. Master Song Feng was here. Qinshi's complexion turned even paler. He almost didn't dare to imagine what had happened. Master Song Feng had been here, but Imo Tiange wasn't there. She was in the early stage of the core formation realm, the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole. Don't worry. Lord Taoist Jinghe comforted him and took something out of his robe. It was a very small lamp, only the size of a palm. The light inside the lampshade was very bright. This was Imo Tiange's natal primordial spirit lamp. Lord Taoist Jinghe asked her for her blood essence to make it. As long as she was alive, this lamp would always be on. Seeing that the lamp was bright, Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled. You see, her natal lamp is fine, so she must be fine. There's no trace of fighting around, so maybe Tiange has already escaped. Right? Qinshi nodded. After taking a deep breath, he pulled himself together. Master, let's look for her again. Maybe Tiange was taken away by Master Song Feng, or maybe she's smart and ran away. Although the latter possibility was very low, it wasn't completely impossible. The fact that her natal lamp was so bright showed that she was still in good condition, which was a good thing. There were no traces of fighting around, so maybe Master Song Feng just took her away. Lord Taoist Jinghe was gratified to see that she could still maintain his composure and didn't panic. Since it was Tiange who sent the message, can we follow this smell to find her again? Qinshi thought for a moment. We can try. He got this amber when he got the Yang spiritual bead years ago. It was an ancient object, and he didn't know its use at first. Once, he accidentally burned it with real fire and found that its smell was special and could spread very far. So he thought it could be used to send messages. When he gave it to Tiange, he didn't think too much. He just thought the amber was very beautiful and rare in the world, so he wanted to please her. Unexpectedly, Tiange didn't pay attention to the amber among the pile of things, which made him feel lost for a long time. Now, the amber actually came in handy, which was a pleasant surprise. It was much more difficult to follow the smell to find her again. The smell was getting fainter and fainter, and it was difficult to distinguish it. They kept looking and kept looking back. As time passed, Imo Tiange's natal lamp seemed to show signs of weakening, so they couldn't help but become more and more anxious. The most terrible thing was that no matter how they looked, the most likely place for Tiange to go was still in the fog. When the appointed time with Lord Taoist Huayan came, they still couldn't find Imo Tiange. Lord Taoist Jinghe had no choice but to send a message to Lord Taoist Huayan to find her together. In that case, if they met Master Song Feng, they might have a chance. Lord Taoist Huayan didn't have any objection. Imo Tiange wasn't an ordinary disciple. With her talent, she would definitely become the pillar of the new generation of Xianqing school in 100 years. As a Lord Taoist of the nascent soul realm, he should consider the interests of the school. However, they didn't have much time. The 2 Lord Taoists and the 2 nascent soul cultivators of Tiandao sect had an appointment to go to Jade Palace in Immortal's ruins. There was still half a day before their meeting. If they missed it, it would be hard to explain. Soon after, the 3 of them met, and Lord Taoist Huayan asked, Senior Marshal Brother Jinghe, what's going on? Why was Qingwei taken by Master Song Feng? Lord Taoist Jinghe said, we'll talk about it later. Junior Marshall brother Huayan, we don't have much time. Let's go find her first. Lord Taoist Huayan nodded and said, okay. Lord Taoist Jinghe and Lord Taoist Huayan each took out their flying magic weapons and disappeared into the fog in the blink of an eye. Mo Tiange felt like she was dreaming, a bizarre and painful dream. Master, she heard a familiar voice with some anxiety. Isn't this too, with a heavy bang? An old, hoarse voice said angrily, what? Do you sympathize with her? I don't dare. Oomph. Since you don't dare, do it. Yes. Then she heard light footsteps, then she was helped up, and something was stuffed into her mouth. It was some bean-like things. She was afraid instinctively that she shouldn't swallow these things. She was worried that this person would force her to swallow them, but this person just lifted her chin and put one hand on her throat. Those things didn't slide in. But as time went by, the things in her mouth seemed to ooze juice and slowly flowed down her throat. Then, she felt that her remaining rationality was gone. Her whole body became hot. As if she was melting in the flames, the three of them flew back and forth for a long time. The smell became fainter and fainter, but they still couldn't find Mo Tiange. She was very anxious. He knew it was very important for Master and Martial Uncle Huayan to go to Jade Palace. If they couldn't find Mo Tiange when the time was up, Martial Uncle Huayan wouldn't be willing to waste time. The longer they waited, the more dangerous it would be for Mo Tiange. Master, he turned around and only said one sentence, but Lord Taoist Jinghe raised his hand to stop him. Lord Taoist Jinghe was also very anxious. The matter of Jade Palace was related to his chance to advance to the late stage of the nascent soul realm, but he also valued Mo Tiange's life. He didn't want to give up either, but when the time was up, he had to give up one of them. Lord Taoist Jinghe's expression changed for a long time. Finally, he made up his mind and said, it's too late. This is the only way. For a moment, she didn't know what Lord Taoist Jinghe meant. Lord Taoist Huayan's expression changed when he saw Lord Taoist Jinghe taking out a natal lamp from his bosom. Senior Martial brother, this will affect your strength. Lord Taoist Jinghe was unmoved. He said faintly, I can still afford to lose this bit of strength. Junior Martial brother Huayan, you don't need to say more. After that, he pressed the space between his eyebrows and was about to cast a spell. Master, however, it was Qin who stopped him. He reached out to cover the natal lamp, which was still lit but a bit weaker than before. He knew what Master wanted to do. The fog blocked divine sense, but the connection between blood essence couldn't be stopped, so Master wanted to force his own blood essence to sense Mo Tiange's location. That was absolutely impossible. Every cultivator knew the importance of blood essence. If it was lost, his strength would decline a bit. Normally, he could recover it with some time. However, the place Lord Taoist Jinghe was going was not a small matter. There were many nascent soul cultivators. If he lost some of his strength, his chances of survival would be lower. She took a deep breath, and a resolute expression appeared on his face. Master, let me do it. You? Lord Taoist Jinghe paused. I might not be able to take you with me later. If you lose your strength, what will you do in a mortal's ruins? She smiled and said confidently, Master, don't you trust me? More than 80 years ago, I was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm, but I still survived in a mortal's ruins, let alone now. Lord Taoist Jinghe looked pensive, but in the end, he nodded. All right, if you have something to do, find a safe place to hide and send a message to Master. Don't take too many risks. Master, you're still worried about me? She smiled. He took Mo Tiange's natal primordial spirit lamp from Lord Taoist Jinghe, pressed the space between his eyebrows, and began to cast a spell. A spiritual light appeared between his eyebrows. Soon after, a drop of dark red blood essence was forced out of the space between his eyebrows. She carefully guided this drop of blood essence to fly towards the natal lamp, merging it with the blood essence hidden deep inside. In an instant, a strange feeling appeared in his mind. In a hazy state, everything around him seemed to be far away, but some other things were extremely clear. The natal primordial spirit lamp swayed, and its light seemed to be a bit weaker. After a moment of confusion, she became sober again, and he had a clear direction. This way. Chapter 301. The three of them flew higher and higher in the fog. Lord Taoist Huayan waved his sleeves to block an immortal aura and asked Qin with a frown, "Shoujing, are you sure? Why is it in the sky? Is it flying?" "It should be," Qin said. "I also think it's strange. The position hasn't changed. It seems to be in the sky." As they were talking, Lord Taoist Jinghe's divine sense found something. He said, "There's a mountain there." Qin and Lord Taoist Huayan immediately understood. Qin asked, "Master, is there anyone in the mountain?" Lord Taoist Jinghe shook his head. "There are too many things in the mountain. My divine sense can't explore in detail in this fog." Although the divine sense of a nascent soul cultivator was much stronger and wouldn't easily get lost in this fog, the fog was so strange that divine sense couldn't play its original role. Qin understood this, but didn't say much. He just sighed. On second thought, he already knew where Mo Tiange was. What was there to be afraid of? Therefore, he restrained himself and followed the two nascent soul Taoists. The lonely mountain finally appeared in their sight. Because of the fog, they could only see its rough outline. As soon as they approached the lonely mountain, Lord Taoist Jinghe and Lord Taoist Huayan looked at each other and frowned. Lord Taoist Jinghe whispered, "Something's wrong. There are two people." Qin didn't understand what he meant. He was happy and asked, "Master, did you feel it?" "Yes," Lord Taoist Jinghe said absent-mindedly. "It's a bit strange." "What's strange?" Lord Taoist Jinghe didn't answer this question. He shook his sleeves, and the flying magic tool suddenly sped up and flew to the top of the lonely mountain. Lord Taoist Huayan followed him without saying a word. The three of them flew close and hovered over the mountain. The top of the mountain was covered with spiritual herbs with pink ball-like flowers, swaying in the wind and exuding an intoxicating smell. Qin looked down and saw soybean-sized beans under the spiritual herbs. They were densely stacked layer after layer and covered the whole mountain. The rocks were long gone, heavenly aromatic beans. Until now, he felt an inexplicable panic in his heart. It seemed that something had happened without him knowing. When Lord Taoist Jinghe and Lord Taoist Huayan saw the heavenly aromatic grasses all over the mountain, their expressions changed. But they didn't say anything. How could they say something like that before they were certain? Two people. If it was really Master Song Feng who brought Mo Tiange here, his intentions were truly damned. In silence, the three of them descended to the peak. The flat mountaintop gradually became clear in the eyes of the three. Amidst the heavenly aromatic grass, the pink flower balls, and the green vines that filled the sky, a blue and white color appeared. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a robe. Qin subconsciously held his breath. In an instant, his heart was seized by panic. Blue robes, white coats, cloak. These were the clothes of Xianxing School's female disciples. But there was also a man's cyan sword robe. This was Gujian's sex uniform. Finally, there were two people submerged in the heavenly aromatic grass. Even though they were not hugging each other, even though there was a distance between them, the chaotic scene and their messy clothes were enough to explain what had happened. For a split second, Qin felt that there was nothing in his mind. He had never imagined that he would see such a scene. What had happened? Why was this happening? He wanted to calm down, but he couldn't calm down. As soon as his feet touched the ground, he staggered forward. "Xie!" Lord Taoist Jinghe called from behind, but didn't stop him. Finally, he ran up to her. Under the pink flower balls of the heavenly aromatic grass was the familiar face he used to yearn for day and night. At this moment, her eyes were closed tightly, and she was unconscious. He opened his mouth, but couldn't make sound. He suddenly began to hate himself. Why? Why didn't I keep an eye on her at that time? Why did I let her get lost and encounter such a terrible thing? If I could have been more careful, if they could have found her earlier. But now, all he could do was reach out his trembling hands, pick her up, and hold her tightly in his arms. But even so, what happened couldn't be erased. Cheer. Lord Taoist Jinghe caught up and sighed when he saw this scene. Calm down. She didn't answer as if he hadn't heard anything. Lord Taoist Huayan walked closer, glanced around, and fixed his eyes on another unconscious person. He snorted coldly. Gujian sect. Who is this? How dare you? Lord Taoist Jinghe wasn't a kind person. Seeing this scene, he was already burning with anger, but he managed to suppress it because Qinshi's reaction wasn't right. When he heard Lord Taoist Huayan's words, he waved his sleeve and a spiritual aura shot out, hitting Jing Xingji's body firmly. Jing Xingji groaned, spat out a mouthful of blood, and passed out again. Cheer. Lord Taoist Jinghe turned around and called out. She didn't move. He just held Mo Tiange motionlessly. Cheer. Lord Taoist Jinghe frowned, stepped forward, and put his hand on Qinshi's shoulder. Wake up. After a long time, Qinshi's eyes finally moved, and he found that there were tears in his eyes. He wiped them away, took a deep breath, and tried to suppress his emotions. Master, I'm fine. Because of what happened, he couldn't let anything happen to him. Seeing that Qinshe came back to his senses, Lord Taoist Jinghe breathed a sigh of relief and said gently, It's good that you understand. Don't worry. Tiange is fine. It should be because of the drug. She'll wake up in a while. Qinshe lowered his head and answered, carefully pulling Mo Tiange's clothes. During this process, he didn't look at Jing Xingji next to him. Lord Taoist Jinghe paused and asked tentatively, What are you going to do? If you want to kill this boy, I'll do it now. A murderous aura flashed in Qinshi's eyes, but he suppressed it in the end. No need. I still have something to ask him. If I want to kill him, I'll do it myself. All right. Lord Taoist Jinghe was silent for a while. He looked at Mo Tiange, and a meaningful light flashed in his eyes. He asked slowly, What do you think after this happened? Qinshe sat blankly for a while and seemed to hear what Lord Taoist Jinghe said. He held the unconscious Mo Tiange in his arms and said faintly, Master, what do you want to hear? Lord Taoist Jinghe couldn't say it for a while, so he thought about it and changed his words. You don't care? She clenched his fists as if he was trying his best to suppress himself. But after a while, he still couldn't suppress himself, so he suddenly slapped his palm down. His spiritual aura was turbulent, tearing all the heavenly aromatic grasses around him to pieces. How could I not care? He said through clenched teeth, glaring fiercely at Jing Xingji not far from him. I wish I could kill him and tear him into pieces. I want to grind Master Songfeng's bones into ashes even more, but doing that will only let me vent my hatred. Things have already happened. If Tiange wakes up, she'll definitely be the one suffering the most. So you don't mind? Qinshe didn't answer this question. He closed his eyes and shook his head. Master, don't ask me. My mind is in a mess right now. Chapter 302. Qinshe never thought such a thing would happen one day. From the day Yihai entrusted his daughter to him more than 80 years ago, Mo Tiange's safety was his responsibility. When he returned from demonic mountain injured, he sent Yi Jingwen to the secular world to pick up the little girl. Unfortunately, her uncle, Yi Jiang, chose to escape with her. At that time, he thought it was the Yi family's own choice. In that case, he didn't violate his oath, so he didn't need to worry about it. Therefore, during those 10 years, he never looked for the whereabouts of the uncle and nephew. Later, when he met her in Yunwu's sect and discovered that she was the little girl from back then, he thought he still couldn't escape this responsibility. Since he met her again, for Yihai's sake, he had to protect her in the future. Then he would take her back to Xianxing school and let his master accept her as his disciple. He would watch her grow up step by step, and he would be moved little by little. The current Mo Tiange was no longer the little girl from back then. She was already a core formation cultivator and had grown to the point where she had the strength to protect herself. He also thought he could finally change his identity from her protector to her lover. But he never expected that the reality would be so cruel. He just wanted to change his identity, and she, who he had protected for so many years, was hurt like this. Why did this happen? He didn't need to think too much to guess the reason. Master Song Feng hated him and his master. He happened to meet Imo Tiange alone, so he retaliated on her. If it weren't for them, Master Song Feng wouldn't even look at a little core formation cultivator, let alone come up with such a sinister idea. For so many years, he always thought he was her protector, but he didn't expect that the pure constitution he worried about didn't bring disaster to her. In the end, she suffered this kind of thing because of him. Boy, you don't have to blame yourself. Hearing his master's voice, he smiled sadly and said softly, "Rest assured, master. I know what to do." "Shoujing, you really don't have to blame yourself," Lord Taoist Huayan said with a faint smile. "Qingwei's primordial yin is still there, which means the thing you worried about didn't happen." She suddenly looked up at Lord Taoist Huayan and then at his master. The two nascent soul Lord Taoists both had smiles on their faces, which didn't seem fake. "Master," he cast a pleading gaze towards Lord Taoist Jinghe. "Martial Uncle Huayan, is what he said true?" Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled. "Of course it's true. Otherwise, I would have already killed this brat. Why would I still ask you?" "That's right. With Master's violent personality, if something like this had happened to his disciple, even if Jing Xingji had been tricked, he would definitely kill him to vent his anger. How could he still be so calm?" He was the one who became excited when he saw the scene in front of him, so he naturally thought. Tiange was in the same realm as him now. He couldn't see whether her primordial yin was still there or not, but his master and martial uncle Huayan could. Realizing this, she was ecstatic for a moment, then angry for a moment. He shouted, "Master, did you do this on purpose?" Lord Taoist Jinghe burst into laughter and said complacently, "Brat, no matter how smart you are, you're still a layman when it comes to this kind of thing. Master can tell a glance." She wanted to get angry, but after experiencing the misunderstanding just now and learning the truth, he only felt incomparably happy. Even though he was ridiculed by Lord Taoist Jinghe, he couldn't make an angry expression, so his face twisted. On the side, Lord Taoist Huayan stroked his beard with a smile. He also thought it was very interesting. However, he was more like a senior than Lord Taoist Jinghe. After laughing for a while, he said, "Senior Martial Brother Jinghe, since Qingwei has been found and is fine, we should go to Jade Palace to meet them." "Oh, right." Lord Taoist Jinghe stopped laughing and said to she seriously, "Sure, Jade Palace is too dangerous, so it's not convenient for me to take you there. Since Tiange is fine, I'll leave the rest to you." She knew the trip to Jade Palace was very important to his master. His master had been stuck in the peak of the middle stage of the nascent soul realm for many years and hadn't had a chance to advance. He came to Demonic Mountain this time because there were precious treasures in Jade Palace in Immortal's ruins. "Master, don't worry. When Tiange wakes up, we'll go find her father's remains and go back. We won't stay here for long. It's good that you know what to do. This time, the restrictions on Demonic Mountain are unstable, so it's not good to stay here for long." Lord Taoist Jinghe paused, took out several things from his robe, and handed them to him. "There's not much time, and Tiange hasn't woken up yet, so I won't take you out. I'll mark the path just now. Just follow the compass, and you won't get lost again." "Yes, master." She took these things and put them away without any nonsense. In addition to the compass, there were several magic weapons and talismans, all of which were his master's treasures. He just used his blood essence to protect himself. After thinking for a while, he asked again, "Master, is Master Song Feng also going to Jade Palace?" Lord Taoist Jinghe's face darkened. "Most likely. What else can catch his eye except Jade Palace?" He sneered. Tiange is fine, but this is definitely his plot. If I meet him again, I'll have to settle accounts with him." Senior Martial Brother Jinghe. Lord Taoist Huayan frowned worriedly. "Master Song Feng is indeed powerful. I'm afraid the two of us are no match for him." "Right? What are you afraid of?" Lord Taoist Jinghe said faintly. We're not the only ones who want to deal with him. There'll always be an opportunity. Lord Taoist Huayan was speechless. He thought for a while and nodded with a sigh. He had a grudge against Master Songfeng. Even if this didn't happen, he would still fight with him. What was there to be afraid of? Master, it's dangerous on Demonic Mountain. You and Martial Uncle Huayan should protect yourselves first. As for Master Songfeng, Qin Shi's face was full of killing intent. After this trip, I'll advance to the nascent soul realm. I'll deal with him sooner or later. Good. Lord Taoist Jinghe patted him on the shoulder and laughed. You're ambitious. You're indeed my disciple. I'm not as strong as him, but all my disciples are better than him. Qin Shi smiled. Master, you and Martial Uncle Huayan should go quickly. It'll be too late if you don't go now. Lord Taoist Jinghe rolled his eyes, glanced at Jing Xingji, who was seriously injured by him, and asked, What about this boy? What are you going to do? Qin Shi glanced at Jing Xingji, who vomited blood after being beaten by Lord Taoist Jinghe, and said faintly, There are some things I have to ask him. All right. Lord Taoist Jinghe knew he had an idea, so he didn't care anymore. In the end, he said, Go out as soon as possible. Don't stay too long. Qin Shi nodded and watched him and Lord Taoist Huayan take out their flying magic weapons and leave together. When the figures of the two nascent soul Lord Taoists disappeared, Qin Shi looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but feel angry. Although it didn't really happen, the scene in front of him showed that Jing Xingji definitely took advantage of Tiange. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but want to hit Jing Xingji. But Jing Xingji had some friendship with him, and he needed an explanation from him, so he could only endure it for now. He looked down at Tiange. She was still unconscious. He felt her pulse and checked her condition. Indeed, as Master said, she wasn't injured. It was probably because of the drug that she hadn't woken up yet. He thought for a moment, picked up Tiange's clothes, and put them on her. Only now did he understand Lord Taoist Jinghe's meaning. Tiange's outer clothes weren't there, but her underwear was still intact. Obviously, she wasn't violated. Sure enough, Master had sharp eyes and found the key point at a glance. As for Qin Shi, he lost his sense of propriety as soon as he saw the scene in front of him. But this was too strange. If Master Songfeng was determined to make Tiange lose her chastity, why did he leave her and Jing Xingji here? There were heavenly aromatic grasses everywhere. If the two of them were really affected, why did the two of them pass out here in the end? Did an accident happen, or were they stopped by others? Of course, it was also possible that everything was wrong. After all, Master Songfeng's involvement was just their guess. Just as he thought up to this point, he heard a groan. He looked up and saw Jing Xingji moving his hands and feet. He woke up. Jing Xingji felt his head hurt, and his chest hurt even more. He knew he was injured, but he didn't know what happened. He closed his eyes and gasped for breath for a while. When he felt his breathing was a bit smoother, he opened his eyes with difficulty. The moment he opened his eyes, he was startled. Qin, she was sitting not far away, holding Imo Tiange and staring at him coldly with cold eyes. Although Qin, she had never been friendly to him, his gaze carried a hint of anger. Then he realized something was wrong with his body, so he lowered his head and scared himself again. He was actually half naked. Jing Xingji opened his mouth and found his voice was extremely hoarse. He gulped then asked, What happened? Qin, she sneered. Don't you remember? His tone made Jing Xingji frown. He looked at his half-naked appearance, then looked at Qin Shi's posture of protecting Imo Tiange. Suddenly, some memories flashed in his mind, and he was greatly shocked. Seeing that Jing Xingji seemed to remember something, the anger in Qin Shi's heart intensified. He stared at Jing Xingji coldly, but didn't say a word. Under his gaze, Jing Xingji wanted to defend himself, but he felt he had nothing to say. So he had no choice. Things had already happened, and he already knew what this junior martial sister meant to Qin Shojing. What was the point of saying this? After a long time, he said, If you want to kill me, I have nothing to say. So, you also think you deserve to die? Of course not. Jing Xingji looked up and said, I don't think I did anything wrong. I didn't want to do this. Although I like beauties, I'm not interested in other people's women. However, things have already happened, and I don't want to shirk any responsibility. If you want to kill me to vent your anger, I have nothing to say. Of course, I will not fight back. After a moment of silence, she said, You didn't want to? Yes, we ran into Master Songfeng. He hated you and your master, so he vented his anger on your junior martial sister. He brought us here and fed us heavenly aromatic beans, so what Jing Xingji said was consistent with their guesses. However, from what he said, it seemed that he didn't know what happened in the end. What was going on? She was confused. Chapter 303. After a long silence. What do you remember? She's question startled Jing Xingji. Remember what? He remembered being restrained by Master Songfeng, brought here, forced to eat heavenly aromatic beans, and seeing Mo Qingwei in a daze. At first, he was still rational and tried his best to restrain himself, but before he could think of a way, the drug took effect. He only thought it was a woman, so he tried to pull her clothes. Unexpectedly, she was still rational and resisted. Then he felt a headache and lost consciousness, right? Jing Xingji suddenly jumped up, looked down at his body, and breathed a sigh of relief. Although he was half naked, his lower body was intact. He was scared by his own memory just now, but it seemed he didn't do anything. Although he wasn't Qin Shoujing's best friend, he really felt uncomfortable sleeping with his woman. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Thinking of this, a thought flashed in Jing Xingji's mind, and he asked, You knew? Nothing happened between us. She showed a faint smile, feeling relieved. Since Jing Xingji said so, it seemed nothing really happened. If something happened to Mo Tiange, he wouldn't mind, but it would be very cruel for both him and Mo Tiange. Are you sure nothing happened? He asked again. When Jing Xingji saw his expression, he let out a sigh of relief. He took out a healing medicinal pill and swallowed it. When his injuries recovered a little, he went to pick up his clothes and said impatiently, I've suffered a great loss. I've lost so much face, but all I did was strip your woman's clothes. Hearing this, Shi's face darkened, and he said coldly, You still dare to say that? Not to mention stripping her clothes. He was furious even if he was hit once. If this person wasn't Jing Xingji, he would beat him up to vent his anger, even if he didn't kill him. She took a deep breath and swallowed his anger. He then asked slowly, What happened in the end? Since Master Songfeng deliberately retaliated against us, why are you all fine? Jing Xingji put on his clothes and carefully recalled everything he remembered. In the end, he said, I felt like someone knocked me out. Someone? She was puzzled. Who else would come here? This kind of lonely peak was extremely high, and it was also shrouded in fog. Unless it was intentional, who would come up here? If someone came here casually, Master Songfeng wouldn't have chosen such a place. Jing Xingji thought for a while, then shook his head. Your junior sister seems to be better than me. Ask her when she wakes up. Maybe she knows. And she answered, but he continued to stare at him without saying anything. Jing Xingji felt a chill run down his spine. I've already said that I haven't touched her. You're not thinking of killing me to vent your anger, are you? She said coldly. You didn't touch her, but you were the one who took off her clothes, right? You can't blame me for this. Jing Xingji said confidently. Don't tell me you're going to argue about this too. I didn't even get to kiss her. Jing Xingji's words made she feel a bit better. He looked at Mo Tiange in his arms, paused for a while, then said, I don't want to kill you to vent my anger, but I also don't want her to see you again. You should leave first. Jing Xingji sighed and said, I know you've already shown mercy to me, and I'm not an ungrateful person. Since that's the case, let's meet again. He no longer nagged. He stood up, picked up his things, rode his flying sword, and flew away. Fortunately, Master Songfeng probably didn't care about the two core formation cultivators things, so he didn't pick up their Chinquan bags. Otherwise, it would really be a big loss. The two of them weren't ordinary core formation cultivators, and the treasures they had on them couldn't be compared to ordinary core formation cultivators. Jing Xingji walked far away. In Qin, she withdrew his gaze. The matter was temporarily resolved, but it was far from over. Even if this kind of thing didn't happen in the end, it would still hurt Mo Tiange. Now, he only hoped that Mo Tiange's state of mind wasn't affected. In addition, Master Songfeng's move was really sinister. If it really happened, even if he caught Mo Tiange and killed her, it still wouldn't be as disgusting as this move. Master always said this person was the #1 cultivator in the Celestial Pole. But in fact, he was neither human nor ghost. He was psychopathic and wasn't a normal person since a long time ago. Sure enough, he was right. After an unknown amount of time, Mo Tiange woke up from the darkness. After regaining consciousness, the first thing she felt was a headache, a splitting headache. "You're awake?" A gentle voice came into her ears. It was Qin Shi, senior marshal brother. She called out and reached out her hand. Just as she was about to say something, some scenes suddenly flashed in her mind. Her eyes widened, and she jumped up in fright. When she opened her eyes, the person she saw was indeed Qin Shi. Seeing her panicked look, Qin Shi comforted her with gentle words. "Don't be afraid. It's okay now. You're safe now." His gentleness calmed Mo Tiange down a little, but when she recalled what happened before she fainted, she couldn't stay calm. She grabbed Qin Shi's clothes, raised her head, and asked in panic, "Senior marshal brother, did I know?" Qin Shi knew what she wanted to ask, so he hugged her without hesitation. "Nothing happened. Don't be afraid. I'm here. You'll be fine, no?" Mo Tiange shook her head in despair. "You don't know what happened." Master Songfeng, Jing Xingji." She was almost incoherent. I know. Qin Shi hugged her tightly and comforted her. "I know what you're saying. Don't be afraid. It's really okay. You're fine. Nothing happened. Feel it, isn't it?" Such comforting and hugging comforted Mo Tiange. She listened to him and felt that her clothes were intact and there was nothing wrong with her body. Then she slowly calmed down and muttered to herself, "No, nothing happened. Nothing. Yes, nothing. Nothing happened." Qin Shi patted her back and repeated softly. Mo Tiange's mood gradually eased from his gentle voice. She leaned on his shoulder and tried to calm down. After a long time, she finally felt that everything was true. Nothing terrible really happened to her. She finally returned to normal and asked, "Senior marshal brother, how did you find this place? I thought you and Master couldn't find me." When she was brought here by Master Songfeng and fed with heavenly aromatic beans, her heart was full of despair. She fervently hoped that Master and him would come to save her, but even when she lost her mind, they still didn't come. Feeling her trembling, Qin Shi hugged her tighter and hated Master Songfeng even more in his heart. Mo Tiange had always been very courageous, but this time, she was so scared. It could be imagined how frightened and desperate she was at that time. It was Master who thought of a way. He didn't mention that he used his blood essence and only said, "We found this place. Fortunately, you're fine. Did you guys save me in time?" "No. When we arrived, you and Jing Xingji were already unconscious." Seeing that her mood had returned to normal, Qin Shi told her in detail what he saw when he arrived. He especially explained that only her outer clothes were torn, but her undergarments were intact, and there was a distance between her and Jing Xingji's. Mo Tiange listened to him one by one, lost in thought. When Qin Shi finished, she asked, "Did you see anyone else besides us?" "No." This question puzzled Qin Shi. He said, "Jing Xingji said someone seemed to have knocked him out. Do you still remember?" Mo Tiange slowly recalled. At that time, Niao Wushang showed mercy to her. She didn't actually swallow those heavenly aromatic beans, but some juice flowed into her body, so she was affected. After feeding them heavenly aromatic beans, Master Songfeng laughed and walked away. She wanted to save them by herself, but she finally spat out all the heavenly aromatic beans in her mouth. She didn't know what Master Songfeng did to her body, but her cultivation level was restricted and her mind was also affected. She was in a daze and couldn't use her strength. Then Jing Xingji pounced on her and tore her clothes. She resisted desperately, but when she thought she couldn't escape, her strength suddenly disappeared. She couldn't hold on anymore and passed out. Right? She suddenly remembered that before she passed out, she seemed to have heard a sigh. That voice was a bit familiar. She grabbed Qin Shi's clothes and said, "It's Nie Wuxiang. She saved me." Nie Wuxiang? Who was she? Nie Wuxiang is Master Song Feng's disciple. We met her before, and she was also the one who led Master Song Feng here. Thinking of Nie Wuxiang, Imo Tiange didn't know whether she should hate her or be grateful. Master Song Feng was led here by her, but in the end, she was able to survive because she extended a helping hand. Qin Shi listened to her slowly talk about what happened after the two of them were separated, as well as some things she still remembered. In the end, she said, it should be Nie Wuxiang. She came back later and knocked Jing Xingji unconscious. I recognized her voice. Qin Shi was silent for a moment, then said, "Fortunately, Master Song Feng really deserved it. If he didn't treat his disciple like that, how could this Miss Nie take the risk to save you? In my opinion, when you escaped from the fog with her, she reported it to her master. I just didn't expect Master Song Feng to come up with such a shameless idea." He paused for a moment, then continued. "Even if she also had a part in this matter, she saved you after all. If we meet her in the future, we should be lenient." Imo Tiange nodded, then sighed. She's also a pitiful person. Master Song Feng didn't treat her like a disciple. Even if she was a servant, he wouldn't treat her like this. Qin Shi smiled, then bent down and hugged her tightly. "I'm just glad that you're really okay." After the disaster, this kind of hug made Imo Tiange feel very satisfied. The two of them hugged for a while. Then she suddenly asked, "Senior Marshal Brother, if this kind of thing really happened, what would you do?" Qin Shi didn't let go of her, so Imo Tiange couldn't see his expression. After a while, she only heard him say, "Of course I'd tear Master Song Feng into pieces." This wasn't the answer Imo Tiange wanted to hear, so she asked again, "What about me? Would you still want me?" This time, Qin Shi didn't answer for a long time. It was so long that Imo Tiange felt disappointed, and she heard him chuckle and let go of her. He looked her in the eyes and said with incomparable sincerity, "No matter what you look like or what happened to you, you're Imo Tiange. I love you, so I absolutely won't abandon you." This was the first time he said he loved her. Although none of these things happened, although it was just a promise, Imo Tiange felt she was still willing to believe him and believe he didn't lie. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.